fellas, guys, gentlemen, ladies, brothers, sisters, we've got something fucking lit for you today. When I say lit, I mean so good. Today's our first Lich King episode of the podcast, Classic Life with Sarthe and I. We have a very special guest. His name is Rugsz. He's with us today. Some of you may have heard of him. Some of you haven't. Either way, you're about to hear of him. Today, we're going to be going over a tank first, then healers, and then the DPS tier listing for Wrath of the Lich King. Okay. If you go to YouTube and you look up tier listing, you'll see a ton of them. You'll see a ton by a bunch of different content creators, and they're all good in their own way. But I seem to find like a lot of them kind of go towards ICC or what's happening at the end of the game, and you can't really find any that's happening now for tier 7 or 8 or 9. So what we did was, instead of doing them per phase, we're going to do one big overall one. Just the first one this week is going to be an overall one. I mean, it's less serious for the tanks and the healers because they don't really change that much. Of course, like you'll see when we get into the healing part with Retro Shaman, but it doesn't really change much. But when it comes to DPS, as you can imagine, does change for tiers. There's, you go arms to fury, you go demo strong to beginning to affliction. You can do so many other things with different specs. So just to keep it broad, this one's going to be more of like what you can expect from each spec in Lich King during the cycle of Lich King. Rugsz will touch on where they're shining and whatnot and which phases. However, we will be doing phase breakdowns. So the next time we do one of these, it'll be specifically for phase 1. What would be phase 1 in Lich King, which is tier 7. So that being said, don't chew anybody's heads off. Enjoy it. It's long. I will cut it down and post them separately as well, just for anybody who just wants to see them separately. But enjoy it, my friends. And I'll see you in the next one. We're going to do a couple of Lich King episodes as well. Next week, we'll do a broad one with Scotty J, and then we're going to do a PvP episode as well. So we'll see you there. Have fun. Guys, welcome to episode 9? Let me check. Let me confirm that. I think it's 9. I'm pretty sure it's 9. It's episode 9. Oh, it's 8. Oh, it's 9. I just put 8 on the title. Let me switch up to episode 9 of the Classic Life. Sarthe will be here any minute. He's finishing up a VOD review of somebody's speed run that went in 57 minutes, which is fucking bananas.
On the dot. So he's finishing that up, and then he'll be over here, and then we'll start the big dick stuff. So right now we're just gonna shoot the shit, bro. This is the homie Rugsz. Look, I am so excited to introduce this guy. This guy is a 100. I would say 85% of my Lich King knowledge comes from this dude. Whether his channel, he's my raid leader for a split second. Everything I've learned from Lich King has mainly come from this guy, right? I'm super excited to fucking have him introduce himself. This is like my favorite dude in the fucking world. He's going to come on every single Lich King episode that we have. He's going to be on it. He's going to be almost look at him like another co-host for Lich King episodes, which obviously are going to be, we'll do one now, one next week. And then next week will be Scotty J with some more like I wanted to go over the professions, maybe some PvP stuff like that. And then, no, not PvP stuff. The third episode is going to be a PvP episode where I have earplugs and some other people coming on that are big into the Lich King PvP scene. So today's going to be all about raiding, all about PvE Andes, which is many of us are PvE Andes. Rugsz, I love you, brother. Introduce yourself, dude. Do your shit. Do your thing, girl. Thank you, bro. Hey, I appreciate the intro, man, because I'm excited for this PvE talk. Like, that's really like my wheelhouse here. I get a lot of questions here and there about like PvP stuff. And the first thing I got to say is like, yo, like, let me leave that to a guy like Earpugs. Like, that dude's going to absolutely slay it. Like,
Gigabrain.
I want to try to inform my audiences as best as I can, but I don't want to try to speak too much onto a subject that like I'm just like bullshitting on. Like, I want to try to like actually tell you like what I know with the best, generally obviously going to be opinionated, but the best info that I can. Yeah. And so I'm hyped, dude. I've been playing Wrath for years now. God, I've done so many private servers at this point that I've kind of lost track. Most of the time, like with the private server scene, it kind of dies out after Ulduar. But I've seen a few servers all the way through, and I'm mostly a melee DPS guy, mostly a DK guy, and I've dabbled with some healing and I've dabbled with tanks, but I'm mostly a big melee brain. So that's what kind of where I'm coming from with all this stuff today. So I'm super pumped, man.
Yeah. I'm hyped. I was gonna get. I didn't even want a fourth guest on here because it didn't feel like there was someone adequate enough. I know that there are, and I know that there are other big brains in there, but there's something about there's a lot of tier lists out there, and there's shout out to Funky, shout out to every single shout out to every Lich King content creator out there. But I've noticed that a lot of content creators kind of edge towards that
tier listing for ICC and shit like that. And then Rugsz is that Rugsz, not only more important, most importantly, if you want to link me your logs, most importantly, the biggest thing that I like about Rugsz is not only is his Lich King content, but he's a fucking gigabrain TBC player. He plays TBC. He understands the classic scene at a very high level. He's ranks 5 world Pharaoh, bro, like DPS Pharaoh. So nice 420 Archimon. I love it. Oh, there he is, boys. Wait. Let's pause for a second. Let's pause and get the homie in here. Oh fuck, I gotta get all the settings right again. Okay, well, we're just doing
fix my face.
Yeah, we're doing Rugsz introductions. I was waiting for you, so I'm just shilling him out. I was saying, I'll fix the cameras in a second. I was saying that there's a lot of content creators out there for Lich King, and the reason that we chose Rugsz was, I mean, we have a long list of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is this dude is rank 5 world Pharaoh TBC Classic. There's not a lot of people who are making and high level playing Lich King servers and Classic. It's unheard of. Like you don't ever see that mesh in between. Yeah, now you will on this future server because all of us are like, yeah, we're gonna play now. But I'm talking like over the past year, bro. Like this dude is raid leading realm first runs. He's with these power pumper guilds and Lich King, and he's also and not only that, but shout out to the boys Fusion, bro, because Rugsz is with me over there in Fusion for Lich King, baby. We already here, man. We bumping and dumping. It's gonna be fun, bro.
There we go.
It's gonna be fun.
I didn't even know that. That's what's up.
Yeah, so Rugsz, I'm gonna let you, or Sarthe, you can chime in how you're doing too. I'm gonna get the cameras right where you guys mingle for a little bit, okay? Someone confirm Sarthe's volume too. Let me know how Sarthe's volume is. Go ahead.
Am I really quiet or what?
Nah, you should be good.
Ooh, that sounds pretty.
Yeah. What's up, boys? Dude, how's it going? Sorry for being a little bit late.
Oh, you're fine,
just
bro.
Finished the speedrun review for
57
Noobs,
minutes,
the new
bro.
world record. Yeah, very, very fast, man. Oh my god, they are blasting. They're absolutely blasting. And it's gonna be so fun to see what speedruns happen for the rest of this phase.
Yeah, bro.
Noobs is on a different level. Those guys are just absolutely cracked out of their minds.
Yeah, they have 1 and 2. They have 1 and 2 right now again. They're going nuts. And then just China in general, like TNB, the other Chinese guild, was on pace for 56 minutes. So,
damn,
we'll see. But Rugsz, dude, how you been? How you doing?
Dude, I'm doing good. I'm chilling, bro. I had a good, nice, restful weekend. You know, personally for me, like a good weekend is a weekend where I don't have a lot going on. Like that is like super restful for me. So I'm good. I'm chilling, man. I'm really happy to be here. I'm a big fan of you guys. You know, like I've loved you guys for a long time. It's cool to like be on this side of it with you because I've seen your channels and, you know, like you guys actually put out good content. It's not just like, it's not only entertaining, like when Sarthe does some freak out reaction on some shitty roll on Hex Shrunken Head. But you guys actually put out good content too that like genuinely helps people. Like Sarthe, you're always in the weeds of it with hunters and giving like good info on hunters and how to parse higher and how to perform better. And Crix is doing the same with all the new Warlock tech that keeps coming out. And I love that shit. And I hope to be like a contributor to the community in that way when Wrath comes out with like Death Knights. I feel like that's my niche. And that's my most knowledgeable area. So I hope to be, you know, just like you guys in that area when it comes to Wrath. So I'm really happy to be here, guys.
Oh, I feel touched, bro. You got a couple light-skinned brothers over here feeling touched right now, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I love it, brother. Yeah. I told Sarthe you weren't here, but that's what I was saying was we do a couple, I think in 2 or 3 Lich King episodes back to back just to kind of ride this hype out. And to be honest, yes, on each beginning of the episode besides today, we'll touch on TBC, but the lull for TBC that Sarthe and I were talking about a month ago is here. Like it's fun. I'm not saying it's boring, but as we're going to get further along and closer to Sunwell, it's going to start getting a little more like, okay, you know what I mean? So for that reason, today is a full PvE episode for those that are just joining on Lich King. The full PvE will go we're going to do a tank tier list first, healing tier list, and go over every single DPS class on PvE standards, okay? Next week,
be a fun one.
Yes. Next week, we have Scotty J on here. I think it's actually sooner than next week. I think it's actually in like 6 days. We have Scotty J on here, and we will be covering everything else that's not PvE related. So he is Giga Brain. He's played a lot of classes. We're going to go over professions and everything else that we can go with Scotty J. And then the third week, we're going to have a full PvP episode with earplugs and a couple other of the Lich King like gigas. I don't want to just get somebody on here who halfway knows his shit. Just like Lark said, I like that he's PvE Andy'd out, so he can talk about PvE for you guys. I like that Scotty covers everything else. I like that he'll be here covering for you guys. And I like that earplugs is just a Giga Brain Lich King, so there's no whatever the fucking confusions or whatever. Obviously, when it comes to tier lists, you will see very different responses. Okay, there's gonna be people in here who might not agree with Rugsz. That's okay. Rugsz is not the be all say all. He'll say that. This is just coming from his years of experience at rating at the top level. On top of, let's see, a lot of, I said it earlier, but you guys weren't here, so I'll say it again. A lot of the other tier lists on Google, on YouTube are based on ICC for some reason. Like, it's like the main thing everybody, why do they do that, Rugsz? I don't know. It just feels like everybody instantly just does ICC shit.
Yeah.
We still have everything in the world before then. So, and like I said earlier, Rugsz is a top tier, rank 5 world feral DPS and TBC Classic. So his brain is already working, tailoring towards Classic community, which is what we want. We don't, like, private server is cool, but we already know how different the worlds are. We don't know, and this is a Classic player. Like, you don't meet a lot of friendly people on the private servers, and we know that, right? So we just said that earlier, but now that Sarthe and his crew are in here, you want to do a brief introduction again, Rugsz, just for the people that missed you? Sarthe, go ahead, sorry.
So I think that's, like, before you introduce yourself, sorry about that, Rugsz, but I think that's one of the things I'm the most excited for about Wrath in general is we're coming in with players that have really extensive knowledge of Classic and how Classic works, and are going to be able to translate the Wrath knowledge into that, instead of, in particular, I would say with TBC, a lot of the TBC players or content creators, not even like Crix, but like even just like anyone talking about TBC wouldn't have had the same experience in Classic, or wasn't min-maxing in Classic also, so that they could see how things are going to translate, because it's going to be a different mindset a little bit, or mindset. People are going to come in with a different mindset, and you're going to be focused more on overall damage a lot of the times, or looking at like single target boss parsing. So like that's like two things that are huge. And early on in TBC, people were always worried about like warriors not being great, but then, I mean, look at us now, or look at Glaive warriors, of course.
Yeah, and I was the #1 guy who was like, remember, I don't know if you remember the clip I had where I was like, yeah,
you were zug, and now
you're all on fucking Fury.
Bro, just to touch on Fury, I love it even more, bro. Like, and then looking ahead at Sunwell, dude, looking ahead at Sunwell, I'm trying to keep it Lich King related, but I can't right now. Looking ahead to Sunwell, dude, that's Cleave City, bro. I cannot fucking wait for Sunwell on my Fury Warrior. It's crazy. I can't wait. I literally can't wait.
Nuts.
I need to show one more.
I'll be right back.
Okay,
I'm gonna turn AC on in my house.
Yeah, you're
like
dripping right now, bro. You are dripping right now, bro. God damn.
No, I really like what Sarthe was saying. I think the whole mindset and the approach of Wrath Classic is going to be really challenging and formative for people who are maybe in my shoes, who are like private server Andys or Wrath Andys, who think that we know everything. We need to like genuinely be prepared for the unexpected. And I think everyone who's played TBC private servers before Classic TBC came out, I think it kind of rocked their worlds a little bit too. Like, we know that some of these tier lists were wrong, and some of the information that we had was like straight up wrong, and we need to be like prepared to, or at least like mentally prepared to be wrong on some of these things. So at least take everything with a huge grain of salt, that we are going at it with not only like our best guess and our best prediction of what's going to be, but also the flexibility of knowing, like, after we beat the hell out of this expansion and try to push overall and push boss damage like crazy, which is something that we're just not doing on private servers. We're like just split clearing and YOLOing. It's going to be really cool to see what happens.
Yeah, I think you just said it. I was a TBC private server person into Lich King, and that's why I'm so excited for these, because I feel like we know I'm not a humble person, but I feel like I know exactly what to form all of these around now, because I fucked up. I did that. I did the tier list, and I did all this shit for TBC private servers, and I was wrong about a lot of things too, just like everybody was. Now we know, you know what I mean? And and this is why it's so big, you know? And so I'm very excited. Sarthe, I need to show the one more TBC thing before we go. Bro, all
right.
You guys know that I re-rolled to the homie Fusion. So did Rugsz. Shout out. Rugsz and I both joined Fusion for Lich King. And Sunwell, if we get caught up, I think. Yeah. So I am on my first week at 70. So I have not even 2 days played on this Alliance Warlock before I show you this, okay? And
let's see it.
Yeah. How do you see it without anything?
No way, dude.
I don't know how to see it without blocking everything. Yeah.
It's so bullshit, dude. He's got 4
Hex, head.
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh, I fucked up.
How?
I just got so I've done 2 Karazhans, 2 ZAs, 1 SSC, and 1 T6, or 1 T5, 1 T6, and I got lucky, bro. Literally got lucky. Well, I paid 5K each for each token.
Okay.
Zardoom dropped, and I fucked because the whole guild Fusion was like, "Yo, you should have got Zardoom because you're gonna get free tier and raid." But I was like, I'm one of those guys who likes to show up to raid. Like, oh, I don't want to show up to raid not pumping. I want to my first raid with Fusion and demolish everything on the overall. I don't want to do like, you know what I mean? Oh yeah, guys, I got a weapon. Can you fucking feed me gear? I want to actually like, you know what I mean? But yeah, I'm very excited for that. I'll stop bragging. It was a good night, bro. It was a good. I'm having. It's crazy because I re-rolled and it revitalized the whole game for me, dude. It's like. It's just so much fun, bro. I'm excited to play with the boys. I just had to say that.
It's all the dopamine kicks of all these gear upgrades that you get.
Yeah, he didn't buy I was too bored to buy those, bro. Yeah, it was rough. I wish I had 30K. Zardoom was 35K, and I needed everything else. I was like, yeah. So I went and got 4-piece, a cloak, and like a belt or something. Said call today. I like that slurp.
Slurping it up, dude. I love it.
So Rugsies, hit your intro for the new boys, and then we'll hit it.
Yeah, so anyone who's tuning in just a little bit late, my name is Rugsz. I've been playing on Wrath private servers for I think over 3 years now. I've played a lot all the way through the entire expansion. Started off as a noob, progressively got better and better. A lot of these servers have been customly buffed, and I've been a part of Realm First racing teams. I have a stupid amount of Realm Seconds throughout all these years, and multiple Realm Firsts, predominantly in Ulduar. And my experience is mostly with melee. I've done some tanking and some healing with some Realm First groups, and I'm super excited to be here, man. I'm pumped.
Bro.
Talking about Wrath,
excited
baby.
to have you, man. Excited to have you. I'm so pumped for this next expansion, and like your wealth of knowledge about this expansion, again coming from someone who's also in the like one of the top parsers in the world in actual classic TBC, is going to translate so well. And your wealth of knowledge about Death Knights is about to be like, you're going to be the DK guy. How am I going to learn to play DK? I'm about to watch Rugsz.
Mm-hmm. No, dude, I'm so pumped about it. It's really exciting because it's kind of a dream, man. I want to be that DK reference and pool of knowledge for you guys. Fun.
Rank 5, just for those that are wondering who the fuck this guy is. He knows his TPC stuff. Feral DPS, don't even start memeing about how many parts. It doesn't matter. Because out of all those parsons, he's 5, goddammit. Okay? I don't care if there's only 100 Feral Druids. He's 5.
Yeah, honestly, I made a mistake playing Feral. I made a big mistake.
You know what I mean? You're pumping.
You're just
right?
holding on till TBC. That's what it was. You're like, I'll be Feral for then. I'll be back.
Yeah.
It was such a bad decision deciding, I'm gonna go play Feral, thinking that it's gonna be good and useful, and falling in love with the class. Unfortunately, just happens to be a super off meta pick. Yeah. I should have played Fury from the beginning.
There you go. Hey, I feel the same goddamn way now that I play Fury. Are you playing it now? I saw you're playing it now, right?
Yeah, dude, I got a Fury ult. Oh my god, it's so clean, dude.
Bananas, dude.
It's so clean.
Dude, bananas. Okay, one more thing before we start. What are you gonna play and main for Lich King? What's your main and what's your main ult? Rugsz, Sarthe, go.
All right, I'll go first. Obviously, I'm maining DK, and my main ult has got to be my Feral from TBC, bringing him up. That's my plan. DK Feral.
DK tank?
Oh, no. DK DPS. Okay. Most likely Unholy. Frost kind of gives me Carpal Tunnel, but we'll see. Whatever my guild needs, I'll play Frost or Unholy.
Okay.
All right.
Sarthes?
I am going back to my roots. Baby boy Sarthe back on yellow. Let's go. Rogues for days. And my ult is the same ult. Like my two mains on like that have been my two mains for all of like World of Warcraft history for the most part are both yellow and pink, baby. So my rep paladin / prop paladin coming in hot. Give me that dual spec. And my rogue life where we can tricks of the trade, phantom knives. We can finally actually do damage. Oh my god. I mean, right now, yellow, like rogues are pumping super hard on bosses and actually pretty damn decent on overall. Especially in like some of these guilds like Rain, Maltese is just giga blasting right now. But like I just can't wait to be back on my favorite class. It's really exciting. Some of these damage, like he did like 3.6k damage in a single target on Archimon. It was like, that's blast, dude. I will still have a hunter. I don't know how. I mean, we'll see. But like my main is gonna be yellow.
Yeah. I was looking at this the other day at the top single target. I did not know that Rogue was that high. I literally said this on stream like yesterday. I was like, what the fuck? I did not know Rogue was that high. Rogue is like, oh, do you think this is, I don't know, all glaives? It can't be all glaives, right? It's got to be with, obviously the further we go down, the more Warlock goes up because it's fucking easy as shit to play. But like literally, the further you go down, the more Warlock goes up just because it's so fucking easy to play. It's easy to do good as a Warlock, right? Versus you see the Furies and the Hunters where you see the Fury way down here. But as you start getting better and min-maxing, those classes become better and better because these are people pressing buttons at the right time, you know?
I mean, no one's ever going to catch Beast Mastery, especially now that there's a melee weave script.
Like, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
The top BMs right now are doing like 4.6k DPS on single target without pressing their buttons, you know. But like it is unreal. So no one's going to touch us, I think, in Classic or in TBC. But yeah, some rogues right now are just absolutely blasting. And I mean, the issue with the entire class, the entire issue, I've said this so many times, is their cleave is on a 2-minute CD for rogues, Blade Flurry. Like you can't do anything, but during whenever that's up, no one's touching you. You're doing like 6k DPS with all CDs. If you're getting perfect uptime, it's unreal, right?
You kind of forget that 2 minutes is 2 minutes, but it kind of goes by kind of fast, you know. If you just, that's like you use it on one pack, next thing you know, that pack's like a minute long or whatever, and then you know it's like a good little, you know. Yeah,
especially if you pull kind a little bit slow, if you're not in like one of these speedrun guilds that's chain pulling every pack, you almost have it up every other pack, which would be insane. But rogues have always suffered from that. As you go faster, rogues fall down, and that was kind of an issue in Classic even. Rogues should have never beaten warriors, but a lot of the times I would always be #1 DPS in my raids, and when I was pulling off #1 rogue in the world for overall damage, it was because my raid was like an hour and 4 minutes instead of like, say, some of these raids that were doing like 49 minutes to like 50-minute runs or whatever. Like you were not going to get #1 overall with that, because just for the fact of I had more Blade Flurry uptime and more cleave uptime, which isn't an issue we have in Wrath now that we have Phantom Knives, and I'm so stoked for that.
Yeah, and which we're going to touch on. The big focus of this is the DPS, is the tier listing, bro. And Rugsz has already done one. I imagine that he's probably going to change some of them because, you know, he learned some shit. Everybody learned some shit. So that's why I didn't want to bring up that old one and just watch that video. I wanted to get a good revamp on it. All three of us will post this to our channels, of course. After this was done, I'll unrecord it. I'm ending my stream up an hour later. I'm going to cut everything down, get the volumes right, timestamp it, send it to everybody. And then we're good to go on that. We already know I'm playing a Warlock. There's no surprise there. I'm playing a Warlock, and then my main ult is probably going to be a Resto Druid, Resto Boomy Druid. I am an absolute... So when we get to the tier listing, Rugsz is going to be talking most of the time. I have been playing the servers, but Rugsz has taught me literally 85% of everything I've known over the past, like, however long, 6 months, year. And then I'm just going to chime in on the couple classes I played. Other than that, it's going to be straight Rugsz. Which obviously, Sarthe can chime in on whatever he wants to as well. But this is going to be a lot of Rugsz talking, and he knows that. So, is there anything else we want to touch on before we begin with the tank one?
Okay. Good, brother.
Now, I'm going to open this up so we can get... Yeah, so I'm going to move this so we can see. I'm going to move make our pictures smaller while you discuss this, and then I'll move them down there. So just go ahead and... did you want to go in a certain order, or can we just bang this out?
Any order is fine. I don't care at all.
Okay. Well, guys, you already know S, A, B, C, D, right? We don't really need to name them. You can D garbage. You can do whatever. We don't need to name them. We know the ranking order. Sarthe, what'd you say, my friend?
Sorry if I missed this earlier, guys. But are we gonna do these tier lists phase by phase?
Right now, I think we want to go. He's gonna go. We'll talk about overall in general, and I guess Rugsz just kind of chime in where they get some strengths on. When we get closer, we can do more of like just tier 7 and stuff. Like right now, I mean, this is just to get a kind of. Maybe there's some people not sure what they want to play, and they kind of want to know a general idea how they kind of look at it and stuff like that, and then it kind of gives them that point, right? Because a lot of things has changed, and Rugsz is very fucking good at putting it in terms of the classic eyes and the classic speedrun meta. He's speedrunning. He knows all that stuff too. So it's fucking. This is gonna be a good one. I'm so excited for this right now. Making our pictures smaller. Then we'll move Rugsz down here with us, bro, and then we're gonna fucking let him rip. How's that, guys?
Sounds good.
All right. Okay. So
let me talk about tanks real quick, just in general.
Go ahead.
Because tanks in Wrath, I feel like deserve a moment of clarification, because tanking in TBC is a beast of its own. And threat is so important in TBC that people think, oh, once we get to Wrath, like we'll never have to worry about threat again. Let me just address that real quick, because I hear that 1,000 times. Threat doesn't go away in Wrath. it's a lot easier. Of course, it's a lot easier. It's infinitely easier than it is in TBC. But does that mean you never rip threat again off a tank and you don't die to that? Absolutely not, dude. That shit blows my mind and triggers me beyond belief. Like, Salvation switches from a buff that is put on every raid member to a cooldown that you apply to one person with a cooldown, and every paladin gets that. And it doesn't take off your paladin buff either. It's a Hand of Salvation. Threat still matters. So before we say anything about this tier list, threat will make a difference, of course. You are going to see people rip threat and die. I'm telling you right now, it's going to happen. I'm tired of seeing people saying like, oh, threat's not a thing. It is. Okay, rant over.
Yeah, I actually hear that a lot too. Someone just came in and said in my chat and was like, yo, is it nice not to worry about threat? And I was like, whoa. Bro, as a warlock, I am always worrying about threat. What? Even more, I almost feel like I'm worried about threat more, especially as a demo lock, bro. Like, what? I don't know where that came from.
All right, so should we start with Paladin?
Yep. Paladin, what do you think, my friend?
Paladin, dude. There's so much to say about Paladin and Wrath. They are by far the most S tier tank I've ever seen in my entire WoW career of any expansion. Paladin in Wrath of Lich King is absolutely fucking Goku Super Saiyan 3 at like everything. They get so many good cooldowns between their good Divine Shield or Divine Protection. They have their Raid Sacks. They have their Bubbles. They have their Blessing of Protection. They have their Hand of Sacrifice, which is a cooldown they can use on their off tanks while their off tank is taking damage. They have really, really, really good threat. And get this, they have awesome damage. The Prot Paladin DPS is really, really good, especially in Naxx because of Holy Wrath. And you can even glyph into Holy Wrath, which reduces the cooldown of it. They do absolutely absurd overall damage in Wrath. Prot Pally, you're either going to want to run like literally one solo tank for like all of Naxx speedrunning or two Prot Paladins. You won't take any other tank. They are just that infinitely better than every tank in the game. One of their most like OP things that they have at their disposal is their talent called Ardent Defender. And it is this modern tech that is brought upon early into Wrath. That's this cheat death. If they drop below a certain percent, or if they're gonna get killed, they instead like are stuck at 20% HP or whatever it is. I'm not gonna read the tooltip because I'm not a tooltip Andy, but Ardent Defender is absolutely insane. It's broken, and it's one of the main reasons why Prot Paladin is just so desirable for progression runs and for speed running, because that little mistake, that cheat death, which only has a 2-minute cooldown, by the way, is like always available. They are absolutely insane by every definition of it.
Okay. And also, chat, if you guys have any questions about something, you can throw it in here. We'll touch on it too. I made Rugsz' picture big because I love him.
How does I'm gonna be the chat's version of the Andy that hasn't played Wrath in a long time, as I'm diving super deep into it now.
Yeah, that's good.
How does Prot scaling work? I know Prot is like the Giga Chad tank of this entire expansion. Then you look at like ICC, there's also a lot of like kind of like undead frost thing, or like, you know, so they also can use a lot of utility there. So if we're looking towards speedrunning, of course, Prot Paladin has insane threat. But then what about single target? How does it stack up against any of the other tanks, and especially later phases as well?
So for single target duties, they definitely aren't the #1 best in terms of maybe threat or active cooldowns that they can use. And in terms of scaling, they actually don't scale as well as like a Bear might or a Death Knight might. I mean, those two classes just are all about effective HP pool. And the further and further that you get into the expansion, these beefy boys just get to absurd levels. Prot Paladin isn't ever going to fall. It's just that these other two tanks get better and better, and they catch up to the level of Prot Paladin. So if that helps explain that.
Yeah, perfect.
Just a side note, when you're talking, because I play a little bit. This is more about just everybody else learning. I'm going to put, if someone asks a question, instead of me interrupting, I'm going to put it in our group chat and I'll tag you so you see it, okay? And then whenever you feel like it's a good time to answer that, you can just hit it. Rugsz.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
Carry on, sorry.
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually, Slams. So Slams was asking, what's the BiS tank for leveling groups?
Yo, this is actually a really good question. So for leveling groups, specifically thinking like dungeon spamming, obviously Prot Paladin is going to be phenomenal in that case. The one thing that's weird about prop paladins is they don't get divine plea until level 71, I think. So they might have some mana issues for like one level, but then that's it. They will have perfectly fine mana issues as long as they're like spam pulling. And what's sneaky really good for leveling is prot warriors. They do a ton of good damage on 4 to 5 target mobs. They are like the poster boy of a good dungeon tank, which is crazy because in any other scenario, I am like the biggest prot warrior hater, but for dungeon leveling, they're actually great. They're like an A or S tier tank. Bears and DKs, like bears are pretty decent. They're perfectly fine and capable. And I feel like DKs, because they won't have like a lot of Sunwell gear, they won't have a lot of gear with strength on it. They are just generally kind of squishy and the more like scale. They want to scale late, so they're kind of worse early. DKs are actually kind of for leveling. I don't love them or recommend them at all for your leveling, your tank leveling group. I would avoid DKs in that sense.
DKs kind of always stood out to me as like so giga strong single target. They're just like they have so much heal, and then like obviously like death and decay for a lot of like big AOE, but like they're just like I guess we're gonna get onto DKs, but like when I remember it was like DK for like main tanking bosses in ICC oftentimes.
Yes, and that's definitely the case. Let's just jump right into DK next. Since you bring it up, I would put DK in the A tier for tanks, and exactly like what Sarthe said, they are the best like main target boss tank. There's a few reasons for it. Mostly it's because they're late scaling. In tier 9, tier 10, that's when you really want them to do those duties. In tier 7 and tier 8, you still want to have your prop paladin main tanking on pretty much every single boss. The reason why DK is so good late is because they scale because of their effective HP, but also their threat is absurd, absolutely absurd, and no other tank will ever come close to the single target threat that a DK tank can put out. And that kind of threat is genuinely necessary for certain fights. Like on General Vezax and Ulduar, Crix, I'm sure you are familiar with the threat issues on that fight. Hodier hard mode is a rough one too. Things like that, like DKs are phenomenal and sometimes even like mandatory for. They're really, really good at magic absorption with their AMS, and which is only on a 45-second cooldown, by the way. They are just really, really good tanks for single target.
And they have a few decent like cooldowns, right? Do they have a CD that gives them like 20% HP? Or is that not in the game till later?
No, yes, yeah. So Vamp Blood is like your last stand. Yeah. So they have their last stand. They have IBF, which is like their shield wall. You have AMS for magic damage abilities. You have Death Pact, which is a straight up 60% heal, I believe off the top of my head.
It's crazy.
They're actually insane. And they even get better later into the game because their tier set bonus in tier 10 makes it so that their rune tap, which is their like base 10% heal, also provides them a damage reduction on top of that. Like they just have so much going their way. It's crazy.
Okay. So someone asked, for healers, how horrible is it to heal a DK? Obviously it sounds like it's amazing, but
yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Healing a DK, I mean, they're not like they are in retail. If you're familiar with like maybe watching the most recent Race the World First and Shadowlands, these DKs are doing like 12k HPS on a boss fight, and other healers are doing like 20k. It's nowhere near that. Absolutely not. They just have like general self-heal capabilities for certain fights. I remember in one particular fight, I was doing a Nax 10, of course, meme, lol, Nax 10, but I was doing Nax 10 on a DK tank, and we got to Thaddeus, and it was a pug, and both of my healers died somehow, either by messing up the polarity charge or something, and I was genuinely able to survive the entire fight without any heals as a DK tank.
That's just crazy.
I was soloing Thaddeus and for as long as I could. It was actually insane.
It's gonna be so fun.
You can even solo Nax Trash. If you wanted to farm Nax 25-man Trash for trash loot, you can do it as a DK tank. It's hard and slow, but you can do it.
So someone go ahead, Sarthe.
I think we're gonna see some like random Rex Troy videos coming out of nowhere where he's like soloing this boss, you know?
Yeah, dude, maybe.
Yeah, DK solos are back.
So you mentioned earlier that Pop Rally has mana issues. I played Pop Rally is one of the ones I played a little bit of on servers, and I did have mana issues, but I wasn't drink walking and shit. So Felipe wants to know if you consider drink walking when you mentioned Paladin struggling with mana, or is it like a objective thing that's they're just sucking dry mana, or like is it like people on private servers down or doing everything they need to do?
You know, honestly, they could probably drink walk, but genuinely, Paladins don't have mana issues past level 71. After that, like which is like nothing. That's not part of the game.
Okay.
For the first level, you could just have like a billion snowballs and put one wisdom up and be spamming snowball. Yeah.
yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, let's see. I didn't see any other question. I wonder if they'll release DKs at pre-launch like they did Belfs and Goats. I think
they have to.
Yeah, do the same thing they did. Yeah.
I mean, did you see what I sent you earlier? Obviously I think some people have seen, and we'll probably go over this a little bit later. Yeah. The survey that they sent out, like they're even talking about doing boosts for DKs
right here.
Which, like, if they do that, if you can boost a DK to 68, yeah, everyone's gonna do. Let's be realistic. Blizzard people do that. They're gonna buy the boost. You know, if Blizzard puts out the boost, they're gonna make a ton of money, and people are gonna buy the boost. It's just what the game is, and it's how we like to like complain about the game not being hard enough, but then searching for the path of least resistance.
But does that boost, that 68 boost, mean that we aren't getting DKs during pre-patch? Because if we're getting them during pre-patch, what's the point of the 68 boost? It seems like they're offering that because we won't get them in pre-patch, and that's our like, you know, uplift for when Wrath comes out.
That would actually be smart of Blizzard as a company to make money, but be super annoying as a player.
It's just annoying because I feel like there's so many other things that they could have done surveys about, and the first thing it was money and fucking boost. Like, do a survey on the difficulty, bro. Do some other shit that we want. Like, I don't care about this. I have 7 accounts. I'm gonna get it regardless. But I don't. It's like, I want to know, like, ask us about the difficulty. If we thought shit was too hard, too easy, or what do we want 10 mans, or do we want hard mans tune? Ask for some shit that people want. This is crazy. Sorry, I'm mad about this.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah, so fucking dumb. All right, anything else
Makes
on the
sense,
tank daddies? Anything else?
Yeah, we got Bear and Warrior.
Woo!
All right, so Bear. Bear is super good. They are basically everything that a Death Knight is, except worse in pretty much every way. But one thing that Bear has going for them is if there is any scripting of parry haste, when we get Classic Wrath, they're going to be basically better than Death Knights for those fights. Unless a Death Knight gets an expertise cap set. Because if there are parry haste bosses, you have to have a Bear form or an expertise cap set. So assuming we don't have any expertise fights or parry hasting bosses, then Bears are just going to be a B tier tank. They are literally almost identical in every way to a Death Knight, except they do more damage overall. But they have less CDs. Yeah, Drew. They have less CDs. They are just less tanky overall, and that's basically it. They provide very little to the raid. And in fact, one thing that I really don't like about Bears is their off-spec DPS is going to be way worse than an off-spec Death Knight DPS. And there are a lot of single target. Death Knight DPS doesn't need a lot of gear. It's one of the least gear-dependent classes ever. You can straight up just have pre-raid BiS Frost DK gear, and you will pump. You'll absolutely pump. They're like the Warlocks and Hunters of TBC. You know, they will pump. They don't need a lot of support behind them. A Feral off-specking is going to have a hard time getting his off-spec sets ready. He's not going to bring anything new to the raid, and it's just not good. It's super unoptimal. You want to have your Death Knight be the one who's your off tank, who's going DPS spec, and keep your prop paladin solo tanking for all these solo tank fights, which there are a lot of solo tank fights.
Okay, and just while we're here, because you are a Feral main in TBC, or you were, but can you touch just for anybody in here some good differences on them just while you're here?
Feral between TBC to Wrath?
Any big things tank wise?
I can't speak a whole lot on the tank situation. I can speak more on the DPS situation, but not so much on the tank.
Okay, we'll get there on the DPS list then. Yeah. For that. Cool.
Cool.
Do Ferals no longer provide a group buff?
They still provide their leader of the pack buff. It's still the crit, but it's all raid wide.
Okay. Well, yeah, if anybody didn't know that, all the buffs and stuff are raid wide now instead of party wide. Lust, everything.
Do ferals, so if there is parry haste scripting, which is it in original Wrath, did they write out parry haste at that point? Or is it just like private servers don't have parry haste right now? So is that an issue that is like could happen more likely than not? Or would it just be like that would be weird if they didn't change it like they originally changed out parry haste?
That's a good question, and I think that kind of question can be posed with a lot of predictions that I like plan on making up until the Classic Wrath release. Is at this point, I'm so diluted between so many different private server scriptings that I don't know what was it like originally, what is it supposed to be, and what is the scripting that we have now. The difference, like to me, has like all kind of bled together, and I don't know what we are supposed to get anymore. Genuinely. And what we're supposed to get doesn't matter, because what we get is what we get. We have to be able to adjust to that, like how we have adjusted understandings of how to use Gnomish Battle Chicken, like that got basically removed. All these different things, how Fury Warriors are doing a lot more damage than they're supposed to be because of heroic strike queuing and glancing blows and a bunch of random bullshit. So we'll just have to adjust. I don't know, truthfully. I know that most Drakes or most dragon fights are supposed to be parry hasting, and a certain couple bosses, like I think Thorum is supposed to parry haste, but I think that's it. Pretty much every dragon fight and like a few random ones should parry haste, but we'll see what we get. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. That'll be interesting. That's gonna be fun to see. But I'm glad you're also thinking about that, because it also really shows like it's gonna be all encompassing with thoughts about these tier lists and knowing things can be different if we get these different versions or scripting in the game.
Right.
I have a question. Yeah, I'm gonna ask that about all the. We'll go over Prot Warrior right now, then I'll do the tanks having a hard time to get into stuff. Yeah. So go ahead and hit Prot Warrior.
Yeah. So Prot Warrior is like just straight up D tier when it comes to PvE for Wrath. They are dog shit. Like I never want to see them in any of my raids. I will like if I'm in a position where I'm leading pugs or GDKPs or a guild, like I'm genuinely never taking a Prot Warrior. Like they are terrible.
What makes them so bad? Okay, you're about to say it. I'll shut up.
So their threat is bad. Their survivability is by far the worst, and they bring absolutely nothing to the raid at all whatsoever. They are just bad in every sense of it. There's literally genuinely one fight in the entire game where I ever want a Prot Warrior, and it's a noob in TOGC in tier 9. If they can bring me a block set to tank ads on a noob, I'll bring them in, and I'll pay them a lot of gold to do it too. But that's it. They're so bad. And does that mean like you should never play one, or you don't or that you can't do the entire game as a Prot Warrior? That absolutely not. Like if you have a thing for Prot Warriors and you want to do that in Wrath, like go for it. Like you can do every single fight in the whole expansion as a Prot Warrior. But I'm telling you now, like the meta has been fully clear that Prot Warriors are a mile behind the other 3 tanks.
That's what I was going to say is we should have started with that, but you can clear content as all these tanks. Let's get this out of the way. All the healers, all the tanks, all the DPS, you are able to clear the content. This is just for the people who, you already know. For the people in here playing Prot Warrior who already hate us right now, who are going to all of our channels and downvoting everything, our job is to do this and tell people what the best ones are for the people who do want to play the best ones, okay? That being said, he already said Prot Warrior is fun, and you can clear stuff with it. So just had to get that out of the way. Go ahead.
That's just me. I actually got recognized in game just a week ago, and this guy was like, "Yo, are you Rugsz? You're the guy who hates Prot Warriors, right?"
It's not just him though. This is an objective thing. He's not just making this up. Any content creator, even the ones that are memey to the ones that know what they're talking about, they are all agreeing on this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they all do.
I like how Jordy said a Prot Warrior killed Ruggs' parents. Pretty much Batman. Wait, so if we were to like say compare the tanking differences from now, like the meta tanking being obviously Bear and Prot Paladin, but like right now you can easily go in with the Prot Warrior and do everything. Even some speedruns are putting up like in 1 hour time in Black Temple with a Prot Warrior. Mm-hmm. Would you say the gap between Prot Warriors and other tanks is larger than currently within TVC itself?
Yes, they're that bad, Sarthe. They're very sadly that bad, and They are basically a prot warrior, or a prot warrior is basically a prot paladin that is worse in every single way possible. And it's not like how a bear is worse than a DK in every way possible. It's like a fucking huge gap, bro. They, I feel like if prot warrior had Ardent Defender and prot paladins didn't have Ardent Defender, all of a sudden this meta might actually be like way closer than it actually is. But with prot paladin having Ardent Defender and prot warriors being like the squishiest tank in the world without a cheat death mechanic, there's no point in taking them. Why risk your runs by taking this like dog shit, low DPS, really low threat, useless tank, but which by the way has, of all the tanks listed, the worst DPS off spec. Because like we said before, there's a lot of solo tank fights. If any of these tanks are going to go off spec, it's going to be your warrior because you don't want him tanking, and his DPS is literally going to be the worst on the damage meters by far.
Okay, there you go. Someone said, I'm not...
Fair enough.
She said, I'm not saying prot warrior is better than others. There's not D tier. I think he's trying to say that they're so bad they're not even C tier at this point. Like, you just wouldn't bring one. This is like, can D tier just be don't bring type shit?
Sure.
Okay, let's do that.
Don't bring.
All right. I would like to ask, and let's see if something else to put on prot warrior. Do you think non-DK pallies... So do you think prot warriors and pharaohs are gonna have a difficult time getting in the shit? Like, is it gonna be one of those where, like right now in TVC, it's already like, oh, prot warrior, I'd rather take a pharaoh, or I'd rather take a thing. Is it gonna be one of those where you're a prot warrior and you're pharaoh, you're gonna struggle, like you're gonna, you know?
No. Pharaohs have a spot in a raid for sure. I mean, they bring the 5% crit, which the only other class that brings that is Fury Warrior. So if you don't have a feral DPS and you don't have a Fury Warrior, which you won't have a Fury Warrior for the first couple phases of the game until Fury starts scaling, you'll want to bring a bear to cover that buff for you. And they aren't so bad that I would never take them. Absolutely not. Like bears have a place. But if I'm being honest, like if I'm going into, let's say like Ulduar, for example, because that's an actual challenging raid and it's early on in the expansion, Ulduar, I would genuinely be happy, like the most happy with 2 prot paladins as my tank, or maybe even 3, because sometimes you might need a third for whatever reason if you're in like a pug or like a lower guild or something. Prot paladin is like that good, but I would take a DK tank, of course, too. Okay. Yeah, I'll take a feral, but I will never ever in my right mind ever take a prot warrior.
Once again, he hates warriors. This is an objective. This is not just like a subjective opinion from him. This is, you go anywhere else, they will all be saying this about prot warrior. So he's not just making it up.
But let it be known that Rugsz definitely does not like warrior.
All right, 1 second. Let me get this over here real quick. I want to try to get a chat up on the thing for you guys. Okay, there we go. Any other tank questions before we move on here?
Yeah, I think whenever you're switching specs, it's only in like a rested area, right? So you can't like, so when you're off tanking or off specking, you're not like going back to dual spec, or...
That's actually a good point. I think they changed that in one of the late patches in Wrath. I think originally it was only in rested areas. But in every private server that I've played on, you can just straight up change spec in the middle of a raid. You just can't be in combat. But I do think that was a thing, what you just said.
Yeah. Okay. So then all of the classes will have a viable off spec, at least. I mean, once you turn late game, and if you geared up your Giga Chad prot warrior, to all my prot warriors out there, I know you're watching Cosmo. Then all you got to do is just have a super awesome Fury set with Shadowmourne and Titan's Grip or whatever, and like slap and be like, no, I'll tank some of the bosses and then just come in deeps. Easy. Like, no, I'll tank.
There you go. Hold on, I gotta turn channel points off real quick. Sorry.
This needs to stop now. This is cancer.
Everyone's using them now. Yeah.
I gotta turn them off.
This is so
But that's,
much
I mean,
cancer.
it's awesome to see, and especially as someone, again, coming in here in the learning curve now, and I'm starting to play like the Wrath servers and stuff, and we're gonna all play together. But like to get really to see that there is a clear kind of line of how all of the tanks are, and it is very like specific, and it's almost kind of ascends like throughout as the other tanks eventually just get geared more and scale to catch up to paladins. So like it's awesome to see how strong these paladin tanks are gonna be, and how everyone just like needs all of the gear and later comes into scale up to the paladin itself. And tanks now finally have like a lot of really fun CDs, which we're gonna see skill cap differences between a lot of like the best tanks in the world, probably, where your guild is always going to be like managing cooldowns in certain ways, where you're using healer CDs in rotation with tank CDs on different pulls. It's going to be so fun.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. It's actually so crazy how many more externals and raid CDs that there are in Wrath compared to TBC. I've done so much raid leading in TBC to a point where like a lot of times like I don't have to say anything in TBC. There's nothing to be said because there's nothing to call. Everyone knows the fights. They're simple, and there's no like external or raid cooldown that I really need to shout at, except for like Lust. And Wrath, it just absolutely does a 180. There's so many cooldowns that you actually like want to actively call for. It's really, really fun.
It's way different. Just hearing Rugsz was my raid leader for a while, just hearing him in raid call for everything, I'm just like, I'm so glad I don't have to do anything, and I just spam my buttons, because there's a lot of shit. It's a lot of call outs. That whole clear comms meme is even more now. I feel like it's like you got to have some, if you're doing like you're pushing, you got to have that good like focus. You know what I mean? There's a lot of shit going on.
One last thing before we leave the tanks, I just want to say, if we're talking like full scale, like DK basically moves into an S tier and tier 10, and Feral can basically move all the way up into like an A or an A plus tier. Like Feral gets really good too. Warrior is always going to be, you know, swamp ass. Okay, that's all.
Swamp ass. Okay. All right, next up, guys, will be the healing one. I actually didn't think about this, so you're not gonna hear anybody for a quick second. Sorry, guys. Let me fix this real quick. Okay, we're back. Sorry, I had to add that to the thing. Might not be worth having the chat up there. Never mind. I'm gonna keep it off. I was trying to put a chat there for people watching, but it doesn't matter. Next up will be healers. Big heal daddies.
So I want to approach this healer tier list with just the standard 5 healer comp meta. I don't want to start making crazy predictions right now on this podcast about how many healers we can drop down to with Classic, because truthfully, like, we don't know the status of if it's going to be pre-nerf or post-nerf, or maybe even like a season of mastery, like customly buffed stuff. Like, I'm just going to approach this like this is 5 healer comp meta, and we'll worry about all that other crazy shenanigans later. We'll start with Disc since it's at the front of the list. Disc Priest to me,
you want, by the way.
Disc Priest to me is, I put it in A tier, but if someone wanted to put Disc in S tier, like, I'm not gonna stop you. Like, Disc is like S or A. It's apples to oranges to me. The thing is, like, I put it in A because I don't want to take more than 1. But they are literally mandatory for your raid. They are so damn good. You don't take more than 1 because the way that Disc Priest does their absorbs is they're basically just hitting a ton of power word shields on the whole raid. They're blanket power word shielding. If you bring more than 1, then you're just having like random globals overlapping with people who have weakened soul, and it's just a lot of like wasted potential heals that could be going out instead. So 1 Disc Priest is basically mandatory for your raid, and they're really, really good for those fights that where they can prepare a bunch of incoming damage. I think like XT hard mode for the tantrums. I think like Kolagarn off the top of my head. I think oh my god, Algalon has so much incoming damage that they can pre-bubble for. It's absolutely crazy. All their cooldowns are really, really good. I mean, we have pain suppression now in TBC that is sadly like really underutilized because Circle of Healing is just, but it really takes like IDS priests a lot. Pain Sup is crazy good in Wrath. And then Power Infusion, of course, is still really good in Wrath. Like, all these things like still carry over really well and become a very desirable healer that you have to have in your raid comp.
Okay, you can touch on each kind of how they heal too. Like, obviously you said this is in the future, like when we go over some stuff, you can do it just for the people wondering how they're healing. Because Disc changes. This is pretty much Bubble City anyway, but now it's your spam. You're literally spamming bubbles the entire time.
Right. You are. What's good about Disc is they're extremely mobile. Every single cast that they're making, for the most part, is an instant cast. It's Power Word Shield and Prayer of Mending. That's it. I mean, they're gonna penance when a certain target needs healing, and penance is obviously like a really cool visual new spell that comes into the game. And then they'll like flash heal if they have to flash heal something. Typically, you're only flash healing on like a 10-man, but in 25-man, it's mostly just get your prayer of mending out and spam power word shield. And it's really, really good to have that mobility because a lot of the really hard fights in Wrath require a lot of mobility. I think about like Lich King has a lot of mobility required in it. Yogg 1, Yogg 0, Algalon, Firefighter. All these fights require a lot of mobility, and Disc will be phenomenal at all of those duties.
I think that's another thing also for like thinking about it from a speedrunner's perspective is mobility is always huge, and being able to position yourself well will just make the entire raid go significantly more like faster. Like significantly more faster. So Disc, I think, sees a really good advantage there, and the ability to really see incoming damage and know where it's going to happen and be able to like kind of outplay that. One of my major questions I have as I'm looking at this tier list and hearing these things and kind of remembering things is, what is the thought process on potential like DPS during the healing? Like, say they're mitigating all of the damage happening. Can priests also throw out like I'm not sure if penance also will still do damage like it does in retail.
It can.
Okay, so do you ever see, at least yet, maybe not so much yet in the private server realm, but like the potential for these healers to actually add to the DPS of the raid as well as mitigating damage and healing? Because I think that's like something that in Wrath we might start seeing come up a lot more and really, really helping out in the speed of the raid overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Disc and Resto Shaman are like the two best ones to do that duty. To not to toot my own horn here, but I have a video up on my channel where I'm healing as a Resto Shaman on heroic Professor Putricide, and I am doing just that, Sarthe. It's once the raid is good, I'm hitting a Flame Shock, Lava Burst, spam Lightning Bolt, and shit, and like it's fun. Like it feels like I did a lot because at the end of the day, I look at the damage meters and it says like, you know, Rugsz Resto Shaman did like 180k damage, which is like nothing to scoff at all. It's like really, really low and minuscule, but like it's pretty decent too. And Disc can do that really well. They just apply Firing Plague, Shadow Word Pain. Those are two instant globals, like two dots that they, you know, put them up, forget about them. And that's like damage that like genuinely helps.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing I feel like healers need to do more, even in TBC, is DPS. If you have the mana to DPS, that healing proactive too, right? So, and Disc is a big proactive healer, more than it's always kind of been a proactive healer as you play Disc anyway. Even in TBC, you need to put shields up before the oncoming damage hits, right? And it's even bigger. Right. It's even bigger now, and it's more rewarding now as well. And in terms of, I played a Disc, not in the raids, but level up, and it was blast. For those wondering, the Dungeon Cleave, which will be the meta still. Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. Glyph of the Holy Nova, and you're spamming Holy Nova carrying the whole way. It's actually kind of crazy. You'll see it when we play, but I love Discipline. That's all I can really speak on it. I really, really love it. It's I just like it, Mo. It's got that blend of retail, so it's fun.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a more modern healer, like you said. It feels a little more retail-like than the others. And and just while we're on the topic of damage, like a Holy Paladin damage is going to be like pretty much nothing, and you almost don't want them to. You want them to like constantly spam Holy Light. Holy Priest is going to be the same as Disc. They can do damage. Resto Shaman is a great one to do damage while healing, and Resto Druid is going to be a pretty crappy one because they'd have to switch out of tree form to do DPS. So just in terms of like the healers helping out and do a little bit of damage, Priest and Shaman's going to be the best by far.
That's awesome. It's awesome to know. Yeah.
From HP to Disc, what would you recommend? Wolf, I also retail main Disc, and it is almost, besides like Covenants and the tough stuff that sticks with retail, if you look at the base gameplay of Disc, it's a lot of the same thing, except for there's no atonement healing yet. Atonement didn't come in the game yet, so you don't have that atonement healing. Other than that, it actually kind of feels a lot like, that's why I like it so much. It feels a lot like kind of retail, besides, you know, the legendaries and shit that you can't get. But yeah, no atonement. Other than that, you get your penance back, you get all that shit. You even get body and soul. You're not taking it because that's a holy talent, but you even actually get that in Lich King, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about Holy, since we're already talking about Pre, saying that since I got asked about it in chat. Holy, dude, I wish. Holy, in terms of fun, it is like S tier, like most fun healer in the whole game, in my opinion. I'm obviously biased. I played Holy Priest in a Realm First guild once before, and I think they just have like the most decision making process with every single global. It's so engaging for that reason. It's really, really, really by far the most fun healer, but they're truthfully like a 5th healer. And when you're a 5th healer, you're like first in, first out. They are like a blanket wide raid healer that isn't as good as a Resto Shaman. And they are a bursty healer for raid heals, like a Resto. I'm sorry, did I say Resto Druid? They're a blanket healer like a Resto Druid, just not as good. And they're a bursty healer like a Resto Shaman, but not as good. They're somewhere in the middle between a Resto Druid and a Resto Shaman in terms of their niche and their healing profile for your raid. But that kind of ends them up in a C tier, unfortunately for me. Like, I would, if I'm picking out like the 5 healers, the healer comp is going to be double Holy Paladin, 1 Disc Priest, 1 Resto Druid, and 1 Resto Shaman. But the Resto Shaman can be swapped out with a Holy Priest. I'm typically going to lean towards Resto Shaman over Holy Priest, but they're a 5th healer. And unfortunately, a 5th healer to me has to go in the C tier. They're just a little bit unwanted.
Do they bring any sort of unique utility to the raid anymore? Or you're already going to have a disc, so you already have fort buff. So is there anything specific to Holy that you could see being like a really large advantage of having the Holy itself?
So the only things that Holy could potentially bring is 1 Guardian Spirit. That external is really cool and really, really useful. I love Guardian Spirit. The ability to be able to save someone from certain death is actually really cool and has some weird niches for certain fights. But it's also like kind of a crappy external. Like being able to predict when someone's about to die like ends up being a really kind of whack and doesn't actually work out as often as you'd hope for it to do. Thankfully, Guardian Spirit has this other caveat with it where it increases healing done to that target. So if you need to dump a ton of heals on a certain target, I think like Dreamwalker in ICC, you put Guardian Spirit on Dreamwalker when all your healers have like 20 stacks, and then boom, that boss is healed to full, game over, you win. So Holy Priest is good in those situations, but in terms of anything new, Disc Priest already has Inspiration. Disc Priest already has your Divine Hymn, your Mana Hymn, and I guess if you wanted to spec into Body and Soul, and it's technically not optimal to spec into Body and Soul, so it's not recommended, although genuinely you can spare 1 talent point for it. So if for some reason some weird like speedrunning meta includes, you know, Holy Priest getting Body and Soul for the movement speed, maybe we see some like crazy trash skip with it. Like, I don't know, potentially, but
Body and
I'm
Soul,
very,
which is,
very, very doubtful.
Put a
for
bubble on somebody to get a movement speed.
Right.
For those that don't know.
The reason why it's not great is because if you have to power word shield someone to give them the Body and Soul movement speed, you're giving that person weakened soul, which you're just overriding someone who could be getting a power word shield from a Disc Priest, which is going to be a way more valuable absorb. So it's a really like shitty way to use the talent, and no one needs the movement speed, truthfully. Like, you don't need it for any reason. So it's not a great talent, but it is a really, really fun talent. Really, really fun.
Something that like actually you would see a lot of use in if you were like running something like Mythic Plus, like a smaller group, like being able to do that and move really quickly. That's always super nice. But we also have so many other options for increasing movement speed currently in the game. And unless they break those, we're going to continue using those in speedruns. I don't see a world where we stop using things like Nifty Stopwatch or even Skull of Impending Doom, like, or Rocket Boots. Like, I think we optimize that way with itemization currently in speedruns, that, and even like Drums of Speed. I don't even know if drums are in the game. So well,
also now rocket boots are not rocket boots. You actually put rockets on whatever pair your like PvE boots on, so you don't actually have to switch boots anymore.
So, oh my god,
you actually just get rocket boots on your boots of blasting, for instance, or whatever the fuck you're wearing. You know,
you just blew his mind.
Yeah.
Does it give you also static movement speed?
No.
Or would you need?
You get
so you need
a haste
2
enchant.
pairs.
So in terms of us, we get a haste enchant that's on use. We can use it every 2 minutes on our gloves, and then we also can put rocket boots on our shit, including and sappers and all the other extra stuff that comes with it.
See, that's something that I've totally forgot about, and I'm so excited
BiS.
about.
It's literal. It's no longer like, oh, it's BiS for rocket boots. You actually get BiS, but you also can enchant your gloves with a fat unused haste thing. That is just so nice. It's crazy. So.
And it's only 1 minute.
Oh, is it 1 minute?
It's
Okay.
So
thank
crazy.
you.
Oh my god.
Even better. Yeah, even better. It's 1 minute. That's right, because you use it twice with Blood Free. I don't know why I didn't think of that.
All right, so
before you move on to there, you said Holy was the most fun. Why was that? Is it not? Are you not? So what's the gameplay of Holy? You know how it's kind of like circle of healing spam, you know, palms and renews. Is it the same thing?
Right, so it's really cool. So basically, the way that you spec Holy is you get Serendipity, which when you get 3 stacks of Serendipity, your next Prayer of Healing cast is reduced cooldown. So basically, what your healing looks like is you're putting out your Prayer of Mending, #1 priority, and then you're kind of blanket renewing with your talent Empower Renew. So you're putting out blanket renews on everyone who's going to be taking damage. And then once you see some incoming damage happen, you either hit like your Circle of Healing, if you need like that quick burst, like healing on the melee for some reason. Or if you have 3 stacks of Serendipity, you get a quick cast of your Prayer of Healing. It's really, really, really fun, really satisfying when done right. There's like so much more management between like watching your Serendipity procs, keeping good Prayer of Mending out, and basically you always want to hit your Circle of Healing every time it's on cooldown in a more optimized like incoming raid damage fight. It's really fun for that reason. And plus, like, Guardian Spirits look really cool external. I think it's kind of cringy and not like the best external, but it is really cool. And when you do save someone from dying, like, it's really satisfying, genuinely really satisfying.
Yeah.
Before people have an aneurysm, once again, this does not mean you cannot bring a Holy Priest. You can bring 5 fucking Holy Priests and probably clear the content. This is a list for the best healers, tank, DPS, so on and so forth, right? So if you are, in this example, healing now this is an objective again. I'm speaking mainly to Solid Rocks because I know we know that they're good. Objectively, they are the worst healer. Rugsz is not the first one to say this. Every single content creator in the world that I've talked to or anybody in the game will agree with this statement. So that being said, you can still be a Holy Priest and you'll be killing it, clapping and doing great. But it's still the worst healer, so
one thing I'll say about Holy Priest is I honestly think that they are in a lot of ways, like the best 5th healer. Like I think that they're better than a Resto Shaman and Ulduar. I think Resto Shaman is just in a like crappy place in Ulduar. And I think genuinely the world first competing guilds for when Ulduar comes out should have a Holy Priest as your 5th healer. I think that they are good and they have a place in the meta in that sense. But they require a lot of skill. Like it's a whole lot harder healer to play than Resto Shaman, where you're literally just spamming chain heal like 24/7. Like nothing basically changes for Resto Shaman except for you get Riptide. Resto Shaman's like super easy profit, great healer, no worries at all. Holy Priest like way more demanding, but actually probably better for Ulduar because they are so mobile. They don't have any mobility issues. And Resto Shaman is like super immobile. Let's just do Resto Shaman next.
Yeah, go ahead. I gotta pee really bad, so I'm gonna go to the bathroom while you talk about it after you to put where you want it to go.
Sure. Throw them in B tier.
Okay. B tier.
To me, Resto Shaman, like I said earlier, they are the 5th healer, alongside the Holy Priest. And the whole Resto Shaman kit is actually really good because they help a lot with tank healing if they need to, but their main role is raid burst healing with just spam chain healing. They bring really good buffs because you don't actually want to stack as many shamans in Wrath. You typically want 1 or 2. Sometimes you can run 3, but you never run more than 3. That's for damn sure. And somebody has to bring those totems. Like the Spell Haste totem is a mandatory totem that you need for your raid. And of course, like Bloodlust is needed for your raid, which is now raid wide. So your Resto Shaman has a place in your raid, especially if you're dropping shamans because you think that their DPS is not meta. So they end up becoming like desirable for that sense. One good thing that Resto Shamans have is Mana Tide Totem. I know they have that right now in TBC, but it gets a lot better in Wrath and actually refunds a lot of mana in Wrath. So keeping them, and Mana Tide and Wrath is one of those still party-wide buffs, by the way. I get asked this question a million times.
Totems are still party-wide then?
Totems are raid-wide, except for a couple. Like Healing Stream Totem, the passive healing from Healing Stream Totem is party-wide. And Mana Tide Totem, the mana provided from it is party-wide. But I don't think there's anything else. Like your Spell Haste, your Nature Resist, your Flame Tongue, Stone Skin, Strength of Earth, all those things are still raid-wide in Wrath. Or they become raid-wide in Wrath, I should say.
Yeah.
Resto Shaman's also really good. Them, along with Priest, provide inspiration, and Resto Shamans have a good amount of crit. So they're usually going to have good inspiration uptime compared to a disc who maybe isn't paying attention to it as much. And plus, like, yeah, Resto Shamans are great. Good burst healers. They're just very immobile. Very, very immobile, and they scale really well, which means that they're actually worse in tier 7 and in tier 8 because Resto Shaman is all about stacking haste. You'll see them, like, all of their gems are literally just going to be yellow gem haste on all of their gear. And so obviously the later that the game goes, they're going to have more and more and more haste, and they're going to get closer and closer to that cap, which I think is 1375 haste, something crazy like that, like almost 1400 haste. I think that's the cap. And so they scale really great. They're really good in ICC, but early, like, I'd maybe argue for Holy Priest early.
Yeah.
So Fury is haste now. Also, there's no such thing as melee versus ranged haste, right? It's all haste. Is that right?
There's spell haste and melee haste.
So it still separates. Okay. I thought someone said it didn't separate anymore, like crit and stuff.
So if you only bring one shaman, do you only get one? Are they the same type of totem, or would you need?
So if you bring one shaman, it's fine because the only like unique one that they're bringing is the spell haste. No one else in the raid or in the expansion can bring that other than another shaman. Their Wind Fury totem is only 16% melee haste, and a Frost DK or even a DK tank who's spec'd into improved Icy Talons is going to bring a 20% haste buff. It's classified as the same thing, but it's better. So you don't need them for Wind Fury anymore.
Yeah, only 16% haste. That would be terrible. Oh my god.
Well, remember in Lich King, you start the game with haste. Quest gear gives you haste, so haste is in the game adamantly everywhere. So
yeah, which is exciting. It's going to be really fun.
You touched on how totems were party wide now too.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Which
And
one do you
wide.
want next, bro?
Let's do Holy Paladin.
Oh nope, let's get it. They're D tier, bro. Don't even bring them.
Holy Paladin. They are S tier. They are
Paladin.
They are the poster boys of Wrath healers. They are incredible. They provide all the same utility that any other Paladin brings. And you need multiple Paladins for multiple Paladin buffs, but also you need multiple Paladins for multiple raid sack usage. Raid sacks end up becoming the most like called for raid cooldown during progression fights.
Explain that, please. What it is?
So if you want to pull it up, it's called Divine Sacrifice, and basically what it does is you activate this ability, and it gives your character actually 2 buffs, and you cancel off the one that is the return damage. And basically all that it does, it puts a blanket wide damage reduction on your whole raid, and it lasts for, gosh, I want to say 6 seconds. You'd have to check me on that, and it's enough to cover for a lot of incoming damage. It's great. It's called Divine Sacrifice. So it's super, super good. And even tanks, like prop paladins, will use it as their own personal tank cooldown if they need it, if there's no other reason to use it. But it's like basically mandatory for fights like Freya for when she does her stomp. It's good for Algalon every time a star dies. It's good for Firefighter because there's so much mobility where tanks or healers are losing good HPS uptime, and you need to provide just damage reduction to survive. There are so like countless uses for Divine Sacrifice. For all these custom buff servers, like you basically have to run like 3 or 4 paladins in every single raid. Like maybe we'll run less in Classic, we'll see, but Holy Paladin is just absolutely insane. They are the healer that you want to stack. You will take like 2 Holy Paladins in every standard healer comp. I can see a case to be made like to drop 1 later for speedrunning, but again, I'm not going to go into that in this VOD. Like now's not the time and place for it. The typical meta is determined to be 2 Holy Paladins as your staple Holy Paladins. With Beacon of Light, like you're showing now, they just become your tank's safety net. Your tanks just don't die as long as they keep Beacon of Light up, because they're just spamming Holy Light. Say again?
Explain how it works for people.
Yeah, so Beacon works, the way that it works is a Holy Paladin will put Beacon of Light on, say, like the tank, for example. And as long as that buff is on the tank, every single heal that they do that isn't on the tank, it's on like anyone else, will also heal the tank. And it's got a really crazy far range too, which is actually pretty useful for certain cheese mechanics. But they are just crazy because all they do, unfortunately, they're really immobile, Holy Paladins, but they just sit there and spam Holy Light. And tanks don't die, and people who are taking like burst damage like randomly just get healed all the way to full because their Holy Lights are just absolutely on steroids. They're just kitted. They're just straight up like really, really strong value-wise, like in every sense of the term, plus all their cooldowns. It's crazy.
Would you bring could you say bring 2 to a 10 man?
I wouldn't take 2 to a 10 man. You don't need to. No, I wouldn't do that. No.
You said that Divine Sacrifice, you can actually click off the part of the buff that makes you take damage.
Yeah. There's a macro where people will just you just take off the return damage. Aura. What's cool though is so if you cancel aura the return damage, it does less blanket wide damage reduction. So a big 5-head move is you actually bubble, then you divine sack, and you don't cancel it, and so you get an even bigger raid wide blanket absorption or damage.
Wow. Is that a private server thing? Sounds like it's going to be changed. No way I buy that.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't cause forbearance, so you can do it.
Bubble sack.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy, and that's also so amazing. And it's gonna, I mean, shout out to Paladins. That's my ult. So
Bubble sack is true. Yeah, I've heard of it. But is there something that would make it not the clicking it off part is 100% private server shit? Well, you could have like a macro to do it, right?
No,
really
cancel aura. If it's not a debuff, that part, if it gives you like a different buff or like it gives you the buff, and on yourself, it's just that you receive the damage from other people. But like if that doesn't affect the buff on everyone else, then yeah.
Go ahead and look at Hand of Sacrifice too, since we're talking about Paladin utility, because Hand of Sacrifice is something that every single Paladin gets. And if you're prot, you will never need to bubble before it because you're just tanky enough to just like ignore it completely. But Hand of Sacrifice is basically like a Paladin's pain suppression, except it's baseline between all Paladins. So it's so stupidly strong that your rep Paladins are included in tank externals on top of your Holy Paladins, on top of your off-tank prots who aren't doing anything. You will call for a bubble sack, which just means you bubble and then you apply your Hand of Sacrifice on the tank that's taking the big mechanic. And it's like another pain sub, dude. It's crazy.
30% damage.
Damn, I didn't even know about the bubble thing.
Just 30% damage, 12 seconds. That's so long for a tank cooldown coming from not the tank.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I put Hand of Salve up because it's the new Blessing of Salve. Blessings are gone and it's now called hands. Like bop is a hop now, so stop saying bop. But yeah, that's how the new salve works.
Hop me. I'm gonna die.
Places a hand on the party.
They still call it bop. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Places a hand on the party member, reducing their total threat by 2% every 1 second for 10 seconds. So that's now how salvation works. And yeah. All right. Anything else on the big pallies, bro? Anybody else? Any questions on them? Hop on these nuts. You already know, baby.
These nuts.
Moving on to the next one.
I'm good with pallies. Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. And this is my favorite healing class in the game. It's the only one that I played like a lot of, and I fucking thoroughly love this one. Obviously, S tier. Go ahead, Rugsz.
I think you could put Resto Druid in somewhere around like A or B. Like they're way better than our Resto Shaman in terms of tier list, but they're not like mandatory like a disc free. So they have to be in between like there. So you could put them A tier behind disc or in front of Shaman and B.
So like, not as good as disc, but better than Resto.
Yeah. Resto Druid is actually probably the easiest healer in the game to play. So they're really approachable. And their whole deal is just blanket healing. They're so good at it too. You're providing rejuvenation spam on everyone, and then you hit your wild regrowth basically on cooldown. It's simple as that. Every time you get a clear casting proc, you're hitting life bloom. And then that's basically it. They never have mana issues, ever. So they can freely give away their innervates, which is really nice. Obviously, they still have battle res, but one of the best things about Resto Druid is this thing called Revitalize. So if you want to look up Revitalize, I think it's a talent. So basically, whenever their Rejuve or their Wild Growth heals someone, it has a chance to give that person like a certain amount of energy and runic power and rage. Yeah, it's crazy. And one of the the best things, it's so clutch. So you know how like in TBC when your warriors have like a full rage bar and they want you to pull the boss instead of staring at it? You don't have to worry about that anymore. You can just have your resto druids just like spam heal on the melee, and they'll just get full runic power, full rage before pull, and then you can pull like at your own leisure. It's pretty nice. And it's a DPS increase during the fight, of course.
Parse gods are all out there. They're like,
one second. We know disc is better, my friend. We already talked about disc, so we're moving on to resto druid, brother. We already know disc is better. That's not what this is about.
I as a rogue am so excited about Revitalize. I forgot about that and I love it, dude. Just constantly give me 8 energy. Just keep giving me some more energy. That's your job in this raid. Okay, cool. All right. And just get me buffed and I'm having a good time.
It feels great. And as a DK player, like it's almost mandatory for me to have that pre-pull on an unholy DK because Summon Gargoyle requires so much runic power. Like just a little bit of a hit of Revitalize helps me so much with my opener. So it's great. It's huge. One funny thing about Revitalize, I was gonna make a video about this, but since we're talking about it, is if you want to pull up the tier 3 druid set bonus, I think it's called Dreamwalker or something.
Same.
Yeah, so it's the same thing. And I don't think this will be a thing because if it was going to be a thing, it would have already been a thing in TBC already and people would have been doing this. But I've been on servers where these stack, and Revitalize can also stack with like the tier 3 set bonus. So people would run like the ring and wrist from Nax. But the thing is, like, you couldn't get them in Wrath because Nax is no longer available. We were only able to get them on these servers because people would donate for these old like tier 3 transmog sets. And that's how they'd get these set bonuses. Anyway, so it had this really funny, like, weird interaction on Heroic Professor Putricide, which is a really genuinely hard fight in all of Wrath, one of the hardest. And the mechanic of the fight is one of your, like, off tanks will occupy and drive this abomination. And it has its own, like, action bar and everything. And this abomination uses energy. And what these people would do is they'd equip 2-piece tier 3 on their resto druids and spam heal on the abomination to make sure that abomination got revitalized on top of the tier 3 set bonus. So this A-bomb was doing like literally like by far #1 DPS in the fight, like more than everyone in the raid, which is like a huge help to making sure that you clear like this hard progression fight. I don't think that'll be a thing. It's just like some funny, weird tech that I wanted to throw out there.
I think it will be a thing personally. That's the exact same thing that they overlook. You know, that's the exact thing that like Blizzard leaves in and we end up utilizing, right? We like someone ends up utilizing it. And thinking about that was genius. And like, I was thinking about that the second I was looking at Revitalize again also. So like, if you can just use 2 pieces that are like not too like intrusive, then that will be really strong.
Right. It's funny because if you want to do this, you got to plan for it now because Nax is literally going away when Wrath comes out. You won't be able to get this tier set anymore. Like the old Nax from Vanilla will be gone and moved to Northrend. So you cannot get it anymore. So if you want to like make sure you've done like your homework and covered all your bases, like get the 2-piece tier 3 on your druids and just kick back and wait and see what happens. People end up doing it, then you can, you know, follow suit and do it too. But, you know, don't be left out because you didn't go to your Nax GDKPs that you thought were a meme.
Yeah. Might as well just grab it now. Why not?
You never know, man.
Yeah. I love like when things like that come into play and like preparing for things like anything like we knew in Classic, anyone in Classic knew or had an idea that like Badge of the Swarm Guard would be crazy strong still. And then because Armor Pen just scales like exponentially and Warriors with Badge, there's nothing better for like certain amounts of or like lengths of a fight, especially when you're cleaving or something. It's like, oh my God, it's unreal damage. And so people now, we're still going back and getting Badge or like getting Mind Quickening Gem. If that's going to be gone, if there's an item like that, but it's going to be like gone, you can't get it anymore. Absolutely. People should plan and at least have it in case.
Yeah. And it's dirt cheap. Like no one's buying that tier anyway in a GDKP. Yeah. Just go in, buy it real quick, be done with it. Like spend like 200-300 gold. Forget about it.
In terms of healings, I played all of them except for a Resto Shaman because the Resto Shaman sounds boring, and I had the most fun with the Resto Druid. It was so much fun. Wild Growth, having that instant, Wild Growth is an instant AoE heal, but it puts a hot on him. It applies
Probably
a hot
looks
instantly. Oh, well, it just looks like here going like this, like putting a dot up or hot up, but it puts it on all 5, your whole party members. So that gives Resto Druid that little bit of like something they were severely missing, right? And on top of they get a res now too, not just a B res, but they actually get a res, which makes them a little bit more, you know what I mean? Yeah, so I don't know if you were here for this, but if there was this better than Resto Shaman, not as good as Disc Priest is where we're at. If we had a beep in between these two, that's where it would be. I just didn't feel like making a whole new one, right?
Yeah, and again, like I could throw Disc and S tier. I could. Yeah. They are genuinely that good. They are arguably better than Holy Paladin. You just can't stack a Disc Priest. There's no point.
Why would you bring any other Disc on solo heals? You are low-key troll bad at it too. Anything else on healers?
Yeah. How do because this I think is always like for me the last thing to talk about, or like the most interesting thing as well, is how do all of these healers, so right now we're talking as a broad spectrum, right? Who scales the best, who scales the worst throughout all of the phases?
By far, Resto Shaman scales better than any other healer. By far.
Why is that haste?
Because of haste. Availability to haste and hitting haste cap is a huge deal to Resto Shaman. And when they hit that, they become really, really good. Like probably better than Resto Druid. They're really good for Lich King. Lich King requires a lot of burst healing. So they're just super good for that. So you'll see a lot of people like shill for Resto Shaman whenever I put them on a tier list like this and put them kind of low, like B. I feel like it's kind of low. They'll like make a case for Resto Shaman, and like there is a case to be made like late, but early, like they're pretty crap. Like their mana management is pretty poopy, and like their haste values are so low that they're really just like not great. In terms of other scaling, Holy Paladins, I don't know. I'm just crazy about Holy Paladins, and they're kind of mandatory. I don't know. I guess I can't talk too much about any other scaling. Like this tier list to me, like doesn't really evolve a whole lot over the expansion. Like phase 1 all the way through 5 or whatever is going to be pretty much the same.
Can't wait for Paladin Discords to be like, well, Rugsz said we're the best. So
why is Holy Priest not in don't bring tier? Because you can bring them. They're good. They're still good. But you just would. He was saying earlier that if you brought a full 5, that he'd rather bring two Holy Paladins than a Holy Priest. But it's because you can do this as a Holy Priest. Holy Priest is fine. It's just not as good as the other ones. You know what I mean? Versus like when we did the tanking one, there literally was don't bring prop warriors, right? That's the difference.
And let me cover my ass real quick. Like you can put Holy Priest literally on the same level as Resto Shaman because they scale too with haste really well. They have a lower haste cap. I want to say it's like 727. Way easier to achieve. You could literally do it in phase 1. But they scale, phenomenally, and their kit is really, really incredible, and it's geared for basically every ICC fight. Like their healing profile works for every fight. So you could put them just right in line with Resto Shaman if you want to. But to me, like Resto Shaman is just like so easy. So easy. It's money, dude. You play Resto Shaman, you're instant profit.
Okay.
Holy Priest, like,
what healer goes DPS first when dropping healers, do you think? You said Resto Shaman, was it?
Yeah, your Holy Priest for sure. Your Resto Shaman would be next. Here's the thing. If we're 3 healing, you could go a couple different ways. You could go double Holy Paladin, Disc Priest to 3 heal. You could go Holy Paladin, Disc, Resto Druid to 3 heal. We even did one super giga custom buffed fight where we did Holy Paladin, Disc Priest, Holy Priest. So I think the meta for 3 healing is going to be double Paladin, Disc. So your Resto Druid would be the next to go DPS. 2 heal would be Holy Paladin, Disc. Pretty much nothing else. And then your solo heals are usually just the Holy Paladin. But depends on the fight. Completely depends on the fight.
Dope. And then lastly for the healers, I want to ask about Val'anyr, bro.
Ooh, Val'anyr.
Who's it going to? Is it just Holy
Finally,
Paladin every
healers
time,
can fight themselves.
Val'anyr is really, really good for these custom buff servers that we've played on. And when we play on these, like, it's mandatory for us to be very optimal with who we're giving Val'anyr to in our raid groups. And the best option, if we're being fully optimal on customly buffed private servers, is to give it to your Holy Paladin. It is the agreed upon meta that your first Val'anyr goes to Holy Paladin. And the reason for it is, if you look at the proc or the equip, if you want to go ahead and let me make it bigger so I can read it. Your healing spells have a chance to cause Blessing of Ancient Kings for 15 seconds, allowing your heals to shield the target, absorbing damage equal to 15% of the amount healed. So 15% of the amount healed. Yes, it's crazy good tank absorption. It's crazy. And because Holy Paladin is doing Beacon, multiple people at a time are getting hit with these humongous, like the value of their Holy Light is so large that the absorb becomes like the most amount that it could possibly be. Another great option is going to be your Resto Shaman, because they're going to do big heals with their chain heal, which is hitting multiple targets with the absorb. Resto Shaman is a wonderful choice for Val'anyr. And then in another weird sense is your Resto Druid becomes a really good choice for Val'anyr as well, because they can provide a good blanket coverage of the absorbs during that 15-second window where they're hitting so many wild growths and rejuves. They're getting good coverage of the absorbs that are going out. So there's a lot of good options. I'm biased to think like Holy Paladin is the best option for everyone, but that's not the case. Like, if you have an officer in your guild who's playing Resto Druid and he is like by far the best healer in your raid and in your guild, like give him Val'anyr. It's fine. Like you'll be fine without it. Like you don't need Val'anyr to do the rest of the expansion from T9 to T10, because Val'anyr comes in tier 8. So it's really cool. It's kind of like a Thunder Fury, you know, like your decision on who you're giving this legendary to like matters for the rest of the expansion. It's not just like a shiny Atiesh at the end of the expansion.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not like Atiesh.
You know, like your decision on it does genuinely kind of matter. The most amount of value we've seen from our meta is Holy Paladin, but there's a case for every healer except for Disc. Disc does not get it at all.
That's what I'm saying. Everybody but healers, it looks like.
Disc never gets Val'anyr at all because they don't get any good value out of the proc, because they're spamming power with shield. Yeah, there's zero reason to get Val'anyr on your Disc Priest. I'm sure there's going to be one like filthy rich dude who will buy it in a GDKP just for the memes, but like
Rip Jordy.
Yeah, Disc will never get Val'anyr. Do not waste it. It's super wasted on a Disc Priest.
Jordy's so mad right now, bro. Like all right, any other healing things before we move into what everybody's waiting for, which is the DPS tier list? I didn't want to anyways fuck you guys. So yeah, just in case anybody came late to this, this is what we got for the we'll touch on it real quick. Where is it? Let me pull it up. Here it is. We did tank one. Okay, well, this will be on YouTube. You can also check the VOD if you want to know the rankings. This is what we thought. And then we have the healing one, which I just erased, but we got it. So next,
DPS. Let's go. This is the one that's going to make the most like drama. People are going to be juiced up.
So you can go in, ignore that it's Kata, it doesn't matter. You can go in whatever order you want from the classes. I'll just do it. I can go at it, so you can do whatever one you want. Just say which one you want, and then we'll fucking bang it out. You want to do like you did a good example of an S tier versus a don't bring?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you want to do the same thing? Boom.
Yeah, that sounds good. And we'll start with the dope brings. I feel like that's the easiest thing to do.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Real quick question: is this intended for phase 1, or are we talking just like a general tier list?
Yeah, now it matters more.
What do you guys think? I guess an overall one, but touching on it. I guess because we're gonna do more episodes like this with you, and we'll touch on just like only a tier 7, episode or something. But I don't know what's the best way to do that. Maybe touch on.
I've never done a general one. Let's just do general, right?
I'm down. Yeah.
This is gonna be the most like controversial way to do it, when I'm not getting like down to the nitty gritty on like a prediction of tier list, but this is going to be general for the whole expansion. I'm doing my best to average it in my head.
Works for me.
And we'll go from there. So the first like don't bring is Subtlety Rogue. That's a PvP spec. You don't bring it.
Easily dang it.
Easily said. Do they do good damage at all?
Too bad Rogue is so sick though.
They don't do good damage.
Oh my god, I'm so excited. All right, yeah, go on.
They don't do good damage, like literally at all. Another don't bring is Frost Mage. It's doesn't do good damage. Well, it probably does okay, but no, it's a PvP spec. And then BM Hunter as well.
Okay. And that is just the other specs are far superior in DPS for one. I was wondering before we get in to these other specs for those classes, they are just far superior than these. So
Right. You can go ahead and
that's
throw
combat.
like
You like that? That's combat. Oops, retarded. There you go.
you can either make like another column or something for the
Thank you.
healers and the tanks, or just throw them in the dump ring or something so that we're not distracted by them. I don't know.
Yeah, we can just not put the healers up there. Yeah. Can
Okay.
I add another one? Yeah, we just won't put healers up there. We already
Okay,
talked
I'll
about
try to go
healers.
in order.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Death Knights. So Blood DK. I get asked this a lot because a lot of people want to play like meme specs, and Blood DK is basically worthy of putting into the do not bring category, and I would not ever bring them in my right mind. But I've seen people play enough Blood DK, like if you want to meme around, it's gonna do okay. You know, of these meme specs that I'm throwing in this like gutter tier, like Blood's the best of them all for sure. And
I'll
moving
try
on.
to put them here. Yeah. And for you wondering, this is DPS. Only DPS. Okay. So if you heard Blood and go, no, they're good tanks. They're amazing tanks. All DPS.
Right. Okay, so Frost. Frost is phenomenal in Wrath of the Lich King. If we're talking about overall, I want to put them in S tier, but they're going to be a low S tier. They're going to get passed by a lot of other classes. But Frost is so good because Frost does not need a lot of gear to get going. Their ramp up time is like pre-raid BiS, and they're like ready to like fucking blast. They do so much, and they are not restricted by like anything. They can go full mobile fights and have really good uptime because they're not like leaving a Death and Decay on the ground behind them, or a Consecrate, or a Fire Nova Totem, or anything like that, or a Magma Totem. I mean, they have really good value just from like their pre-raid BiS gear alone, and they pump. They absolutely just fucking pump. Really simple and approachable class to play too. Their unbreakable armors on a really low cooldown, so they're constantly like being able to pump. Like they have a good opener burst, but then it's like good sustain because their cooldowns are low cooldown. They're not like going on these like crazy big openers like some other classes might do, and they don't have like a crazy good execute. They are just like steady blasting. So Frosty K is really good, very satisfying to play with the Killing Machine procs and the Killing Machine and Rhyme procs too, especially when you're getting like a big AoE Howling Blast out. Very satisfying to see those big crits. Lots of fun, but for the most part, it feels like a 2-button class. It's like you're hitting Obliterate and Frost Strike over and over again, and that's why I said earlier that it gives me carpal tunnel playing Frost, because I'm like constantly hitting like my I think I have them on like 2 and 3, and it's just like hurts my fingers, bro. But great class, great class.
Yep.
As you mentioned, so then Frost doesn't need as much gear. So early on, very solid, very quickly. Then do they scale less? Like not less well? Yeah, less well. Like every class kind of passes them, and that's why they could potentially be lower S tier or like A tier later on in the expansion.
It's funny because Frost has a really weird way that they are scaling, where they go from this like blood subspec build that doesn't care much about armor pin, to when they get to tier 10, they go into this unholy subspec that gets blood caked blade that's going to let them do more physical damage. Plus their 4-piece T10 is crazy. Plus all of the available armor pin in the whole game, they're able to hit armor pin caps. And Frosty K goes from like this like weird, like really valuable phase 1, phase 2, kind of drops down because they're like in a weird like lull, and then they like respec and get like another spike. But every other class in the game is spiking so much more than them late in the game, like in tier 10, that they don't really move in terms of like their tier and their like place in the meta, even though like they actually scale well because they get all those armor pin things, like I was saying. They don't really shift a whole lot in like where they're ending up on a DPS meter.
Yeah. So it's good, solid all the way throughout. There we go.
Absolutely solid all the way throughout. A lot of guilds like will run like 2 Frosty Ks early, maybe even 3, and drop kind of down to like 1 Frosty K come ICC.
Good question. How's overall on these DPS when you go over?
Overall,
because you know overall
it's going to be tough for me to answer for a lot of these classes, and plus keep in mind I'm more of a melee guy.
Okay.
Because we don't really track overall in private servers because no one cares. Overall in Frost is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Again, because if you're playing it right, you're getting big Howling Blast crits off with your Killing Machine, and they will just do great, steady overall. Like they're just so steady. They're great overall.
Okay, well,
Yeah, DK.
what about the other DK?
And then
Cooler one.
Unholy, a little bit different damage profile. I feel like if you watch like any of these DK or maybe tier list videos online, they'll probably say something like, "Oh, Frost is the single target spec, and Unholy is the AOE spec." That's not a thing. If you've played enough Unholy, oh, you can throw Unholy in S tier.
By the way, just throw it up there.
Yeah, I see you like hovering and waiting.
Okay, no worries, no worries.
Yeah.
I'm having so much fun right now.
Unholy is great, and in a lot of ways their damage profile feels really similar to Frost, but it's just different. Like it's AoE dots, and it's their death and decay that does like a huge portion of their AoE damage. And you'll see these damage profiles play out really early. Like in phase 1, think about Sartharian 3 Drake. There are going to be a lot of ads on these fights. So classes that can passively cleave them all, like an Unholy DK, will just cheese and like instantly be number 1 DPS for the encounter, despite being maybe a little bit lower single target.
I always mean when we were doing on the private servers, I would do like gambles, like predictions on my stream while I get top DPS. And whenever we get to those fights like that, I'm like, fuck, there's a DK in here. Never mind. I'm going to lose to that guy. Yeah.
You just straight up lose because of the way Wandering Plague works, which is you're spreading these diseases and you're getting more single target damage by doing AoE. Because your Wandering Plague is exploding damage on all the ads around you, which is a DPS increase for your single target. So Unholy is just really fun. Plus the whole like gameplay of Unholy is getting a massive snapshot on your summon Gargoyle. You have your opener that includes applying your diseases, having your raid pop Bloodlust, and then you pop everything. I'm talking like your Blood Fury, your Haste Pot, your Engineering Gloves, have your trinkets rolling, all of this, and then you hit summon Gargoyle, and your Gargoyle just turns into an absolute machine gun, and is like the biggest portion of your damage. It's great. Like I think it's really fun. I find that like gameplay really rewarding. Some people think it's cheesy. I think it's really fun. So Unholy is just great. They are steady throughout the entire expansion, become even better late into tier 9, because one of the best things about Unholy is when you get 4-piece tier 9, you're going to get prioritized for the heroic bonus for that, by the way. So they'll be like literally the number 1 priority for tier 9, because they will use that all the way through tier 10. And so they hit like this really good spike in like the 3rd phase, 3.5 phase of the expansion, and kind of hit a ceiling there. Like you'll go into ICC, and thankfully like ICC fights are well catered to an Unholy DK, but they've already kind of hit their cap.
Thinking about trash packs and potentially speed runs and things like that, I think both of these classes are do really solid like AoE damage, especially obviously Unholy. But if things die fast, then would a Frost damage, like thinking about it, be better on overall? And then if things die really slow, and Unholy would just be like crazy strong on overall damage.
Exactly, you nailed it. But that doesn't mean that you don't bring Unholy, because Unholy, when they have a disease up on a target, they have a talent that's I think it's Ebon Plaguebringer. It's your Curse of Elements. So they're applying like an AoE Curse of Elements better than any class in the entire game. So having one in your raid is basically mandatory, especially for speedrun.
Yeah.
But yeah, if trash is dying really fast, I'd rather have the burst of a Death Knight or a Frost Death Knight than Unholy. And if it's slow, yeah, maybe we stack a couple more Unholy.
Yeah, Warlocks, you don't have the Curse of Elements that much anymore, boys.
Yeah, Death Knight is going to be such a fun class and versatile in so many ways.
Yeah.
Just because I know it's your other favorite class, you can hit Feral next.
All right, we'll do Feral. So in my previous videos, I've actually ended up putting Feral S tier, I think through the entire expansion too. And let me start with the caveat that in my limited, well, not limited, in my experience with Ferals in Wrath, is these private servers that we play on are really favorable to Feral scripting. Because we're getting these kind of abusive Omen of Clarity proc rates that are basically procking off of everything, like a Flame Cap melee damage could proc Omen of Clarity. Dragon Breath Chili, things like Storm Chops have been abused in the past. Like all of these things add up to a really, really insane feral druid in these private servers that we played on. I'm not sure if we'll have that in Classic Wrath. We'll have to wait and see. If we do have favorable feral scripting, their single target is phenomenal, and they will be a S tier single target DPS through the whole experience. Their overall is pretty decent too, because they get swipe in Wrath of the Lich King, and swipe on top of like some cooldowns is enough to suicide. Like they will do so much damage that they will just rip threat and die if they choose to do it. There's been multiple times we've been doing a noob in TOGC, and I reference a noob a lot because in tier 9 it's a fun like encounter, because a noob is basically the only challenging encounter of the phase, and your ferals have to not press swipe, which is a big part of the fight, is cleaving the ads down before the next set of ads. You can't press swipe on feral in those fights because it does so much damage that it'll rip threat and you'll die. They are really, really good for AoE, but again, it's kind of like a rogue. Like you don't get to like passively cleave like a Frost DK or an Unholy DK. You are choosing to cleave in a moment with your global, or you are choosing to do single target with your energy that you're spending.
How's a single target on feral? I know this is just an overall DPS, but is it good? Okay.
Phenomenal.
If they don't have that Omen of Clarity scripting, which I mean, I would almost pose they probably won't. Does Omen of Clarity change from TBC to Wrath, right? So like right now, those things might not proc it, right?
So yes,
if
it
they
does
don't
change.
have that. Oh, okay, perfect.
Omen of Clarity, right now in TBC, it only procs off of melee attacks. In Wrath, Omen of Clarity procs off of anything. Melee attacks, special attacks, spells, and abilities. And because of that, there's been some debate on like what actually procs Omen of Clarity. And so we aren't at a point where I can confidently say like feral is going to be S tier, because if we don't have that, like they are genuinely not S tier. They drop it straight to an A tier. And you'll never stack a feral for any reason whatsoever. You never stack them.
I think in your other video, didn't you say something like you don't need to bring a feral? Is that what it was, or something? There was a con to it.
You could take a Fury Warrior instead. Like if you're late in the game, like the Fury Warrior brings the same buff, you know.
So you want A or S?
Late in the game, who beats who?
Let's put them A.
Target.
Let's put them A. I think overall, I feel much better about putting them A, because I'm just like coming from the perspective of like this abusive Omen of Clarity bullshit. Okay. Just put them A because we're never stacking a feral.
Okay, cool.
Okay, Boomy. So this is gonna be tough. Again, like I'm melee brain. I don't want to speak too much on casters that I don't know a lot about, but the thing about Classic is we're gonna care a lot about overall damage. And Boomy overall is kind of a big unknown for me. I know that it can be absolutely insane, but their single target and everything, like, there leaves much to be desired. And so I'm not sure, like, genuinely how valuable a Boomy will be. Like, would you ever want to bring 2? Is the real question. We definitely want to bring 1 because Boomy brings a lot of buffs to your raid, like a lot of buffs. And their overall, I think, will be pretty strong. Yeah. I think they will be very good in Wrath. And everyone who's playing Boomy right now, just like hang in there, because you're gonna get way, way better, and it's gonna feel so much better playing Boomy in Wrath. I just don't know if I don't know if we'll ever bring 2. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if the meta will ever fully go into doing 2 because, oh yeah, you're pulling up Starfall. Yeah, Starfall and Hurricane together does so much trash damage. It's a lot of damage.
I went Warlock first, and then I went Shadow Priest, and then I went Boomy. I went to all casters, and Boomy was by far the most fun out of everything, with Starfall on a 1-minute cooldown that literally carries your dots. You get Insect Swarm, which you can spam, not talented. And then also, bro, you get a res, which I'm going to keep chilling out because you actually get a res. But the whole, like, I don't know what the talent's called. Somebody will know in chat, but the whole thing where you crit on Wrath, you get Lunar procs, and then you crit on Lunar, you get Wrath. That's the whole, like, it's the beginning. I don't know if anybody follows retail, but it's the beginning of when Boomy started, when Blizzard was like, yo, let's make this. You know how they have a bunch of iterations of that bar they had where they have more Wrath
Sun
spells,
and Moon,
more,
right?
Yeah. This is where it begins. Eclipse procs, yeah. So you get more Wrath to get Eclipse, you get more Lunars that you go back and forth, and it's literally so much fun. It's like, it was fun. It was intuitive. I had a lot of fun, and then Starfall brings that extra ump, which I really like too.
Yeah.
That's all I know about it.
No, they're great. They're in a great place in Wrath. They're really, really good and very desirable. And you honestly even want one of your, like, you want one boomkin and a 10-man too, which makes them even more desirable.
Mhm.
Like, they're just a great class.
What
that
buffs
shouldn't.
What buffs do they bring? Someone asked. Typical
They
crit.
bring spell crit,
hit.
spell hit. What else?
Both those are huge.
Those are big, yeah. There's a
reason you
couple
bring
others,
them
man.
now,
I can't
right?
think of them off the top
That's
of
the
my
reason
head.
you bring them now, yeah. SP crit, SP hit, SP haste, SP damage. Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
Just everything for spellcasters are like, I need a boomy.
yeah. There's some overlap with other classes that bring the same stuff. Like Shadow Priest brings SP hit and stuff like that.
Ellie. No.
But, you know, yeah, Ellie brings some of those same things as well.
Yeah, Boom was a lot of fun. This is my second. This is gonna be my main alt. Was gonna be Boomkin. Well, dual spec remember, so Boomkin Resto. But Druid's definitely like. I haven't played the melee side of it, but I absolutely adored it when it was caster. You know, coming from someone spamming shadow bolts, but you know, even that changes for locks. But it's like it's a lot of fun, man. I had a lot of fun with it. I really did.
Yeah,
I was shocked at Starfall and a 1 minute cooldown too. Like you don't until you see Starfall, you're not gonna respect Starfall. And once you respect Starfall, it's at 1 minute cooldown. You're really gonna respect it. So
yeah, they're in a great place. You put them in A tier. I feel like that's fine. I'd probably put them in B tier. I think there's too much unknown right now with their overall and the potential, like the ceiling that we have for Boomy. Like they're an A or B tier, whatever.
I think it's gonna go up actually more. I think not up from S, but I think that when Classic comes out, that these Boomies are gonna sweat more than the private server people are. I think there's so much stuff to be found about Boomies that's not found out there yet. I think for sure. Like when the Drew Discord rips into Boomies, that's just gonna be magical to watch. I think.
For sure. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
They'll never be S tier, but
yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. Of course.
But yeah, they could totally be a strong A tier. I could see it. I'm doubtful, but I think I'd rather have them be. You know.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I feel.
I'm gonna go to the bathroom again while you talk. Oh, go ahead, Sarth.
I think Starfall seems like a really solid. I mean, 1 minute cooldown on a huge AOE damage dealing ability, especially thinking about the raids in these next like in Wrath of the Lich King in general. It's not like you're like a giga chain pulling all the time. So like that ability is up quite often on big pulls, most likely when you just move towards like overall damage.
Right. Well, also think about it. 1 minute cooldown. That's one big pool. How long is that pool? 30,
yeah,
45. You know, then you run the next one.
Yeah.
Comes at the end of it. You got to watch it because it's less of a timer. It's more how many stars fall. It's like 20 or something. So you got to hit with those 20 stars. I'm gonna go to the bathroom while you talk about after you rank BM. I mean, not BM,
yeah.
Marksman. Oh, go survival first.
Marky.
Go survival first.
To me, just throw Hunters, both of them in A tier. Just both of them in A tier. Doesn't matter the order.
Yeah.
And let me talk about that real quick. To me, Hunter is one of those like pure DPS classes where the two specs kind of have to go hand in hand. You are picking one or the other. It's like a mage. Like Arcane and Fire kind of have to go hand in hand with each other because you aren't just playing Arcane through the whole expansion. You aren't just playing Fire through the whole expansion. A Rogue, like you could play Assassination through the whole expansion, but you probably like you're a Rogue main. You're gonna switch between the two. Hunter is another one of those cases where Survival is like your early tier spec and Marksman is your late tier spec. That's just straight up how it works. There's not enough available armor pin in the game to merit going Marksman early, and Marksman scales phenomenally late into the game where Survival just kind of falls off. We've seen some favorable scripting with Survival actually. I think we'll have to wait and see because the lock and load is right now proccing off of like frost traps. And so you're doing like a ton of damage by just having like frost traps up, which I'm not sure if like will actually be in the game come Wrath. We'll have to wait and see in terms of the like survival beneficial scripts that we've seen on private servers. But if it is, survival will genuinely top meters like top 3, top 4 in phase 1 and 2. They're solid, super solid. In phase 3, like in TOGC, Hunter's in like a really weird spot where none of the fights are very favorable for Hunters like at all. They're kind of like on assignment duties here and there, and they just kind of hit like a weird lull. And then in tier 10, they're great. They're great again. Like Marksman is so good and on fire in tier 10 that they are blasting, and they are again like an A or S tier spec again.
Do Hunters bring any sort of like? Do we finally get AOE, or are they just kind of like? Is it all just single target damage again?
Traps.
Or we just like sit there and giga blast and fucking machine gun? Or are we just sitting there and like overall you're like, why didn't I bring another warrior?
It's great. I really like, personally, my favorite POV, if I'm gonna watch a stream of Wrath, it's watching a survival hunter play. They do have AoE, with volley being actually like a good spell in Wrath. Genuinely
Finally.
does good damage. And then like I just love watching like survival hunters go in, place a explosive trap, disengage out. And that like gameplay, like you still melee weave and TBC. I just think it's so fun to watch, and survival does good overall.
You're trap
I think
weaving,
their
right?
overall is very good. So it's a very fun play style that's very rewarding and genuinely fun to watch.
I will say that
Yeah.
when hunters are where it was dusting me off the most, especially like T8, we got the old war. Those hunters are pumping, bro. Those survival hunters are topping when we were in there.
Hell yeah, bro.
They were topping the meters every fucking time, almost all about. Not every fight, but a lot of them they were hurting people. Terra, to be specific.
Your Twitch chat loves watching Terra top
dude, it's
meters.
crazy. Yeah, hunters are impressive, even more so than they are in TBC, right? And from the gate out. So I think it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. They aren't like S tier meta like they are in TBC. They do kind of fall off, I feel like, a little bit, but I don't think you'll feel like you're weak at any point. Like Hunter is just a genuinely like decent, strong class. Love it.
I feel like the minute
And
you
I
start
think most
feeling
raid
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say most raid comps will run like 2 hunters because quality of life having 2 good MDs is great. So 2 hunters is gonna be pretty standard, I'd say.
Say that you start seeing them fall off, and that's when they switch to marksman, and all of a sudden they're back up there again.
Yep.
Yeah.
When do hunters get trap launcher? Never heard that in my life. Don't know.
I don't know. I don't think it's yet. Yeah.
Is it
I
like mop
know
or
that's
something?
in like retail. You can throw your trap.
Oh yeah, it's like cat or some shit.
Yeah. But
They get
it's good to
freezing
see
arrow.
hunters-
The skill cap for hunters.
Ooh.
Does the skill cap for hunters go up? I don't think for survival does it. It feels like they're just spamming that one thing at the weave. Maybe marksman.
I
not
think
sure.
Hunter skill cap right now is high, but I don't play Hunter. Maybe Sarth, like how hard do you think Hunter is to play right now?
I want to say Hunter's probably the highest skill cap class. I mean, I don't. Ret and Enhance are very high up there, but like right now, especially if you're melee weaving like yourself and actually doing melee weaving, Hunter is a really high skill cap class. And I mean, everybody knows that I do utilize all of my entire keyboard when I'm playing my Warlock as well. So I know there's a high skill cap there. And honestly, I don't know the enhanced skill cap. It's like keeping your weapons in order. But if you have the same weapon swing or like time on them, I'm not sure how crazy that is. But Hunter right now is a very fun class because your rotation is constantly changing at all times. Although it could eventually, like right now, like people are like looking into like automating all of your different rotations as your haste changes, as these mouse macros become a thing.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
Well, if Hunter, because I'm an outsider in this perspective, I don't play Hunter in TBC. If Hunter is, let's say, the highest skill cap in the game right now, they are way more approachable in Wrath. Way more approachable. That cap is nowhere near it where it is right now.
Oh, warlocks and TBC are kind of high skill cap, bro. You gotta really like butter up that button and like really like you can't even spam it. You gotta like rub it in circles a little bit, counterclockwise 1 time, clockwise 2 times, counterclockwise. Kind of like the locker lock at your school back in the day. You gotta spin it this way and then go back. You know.
Sarth, when I turned into your stream and saw that all of your action bars were literally filled with Shadow Ball, I screamed out loud.
My whole entire both. I have 2 Warlocks, and they're.
That's also why he'll never top meters on his warlock.
No. I top in these pugs, dude. I just won't top in a guild raid because I'm sitting there in like tier 4.
Because you don't appreciate the warlock.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get going. Ret next.
Yeah. Whatever order you want to go in, my friend.
Let's get into it. Oh yeah, Paladin back to S.
There you go.
Oh my god.
Sartha's
go.
favorite class.
Let's go. Okay, so I actually have Rum first on Ret, but I don't have a lot of hours played on him. Ret is not as good as people think it is in Wrath. Let's be honest. If you're watching some tier lists that say like Ret's S tier, it's S tier in ICC. Before ICC, it is nowhere near S tier. It's far from it. I want to say like let's put it in B tier, maybe C. Like no, let's put B. Ret does okay damage, but I'd almost like try to find a way to like not bring them. They are not very desirable. It's nice to have one though in your raid, because if you don't have a ret, you'll be missing 3% damage, which is only provided from an arcane mage or a BM hunter. Those are the only other classes that can provide that 3% damage. So ret is kind of nice to have one token ret, but they are pretty bad. The good news is that like you're extremely useful, and you will sometimes have to take a DPS loss, but instead of speccing into the holy subspec tree, you'll spec into protection subspec, which is a DPS loss for you to get the divine sacrifice, which we talked about earlier in this pod. So the divine sacrifice being so insanely strong makes, you know, ret just another great class to be providing that raid sack for you. Their damage just leaves much to be desired. Phase 1, they're going to be pretty decent because of Nax, them having so many undead mobs, but they are like in the worst place possible in Ulduar, like dog shit in Ulduar.
Yeah, even chat saying B till ICC, then they're busted. What makes them busted
Yeah.
in ICC?
So ICC, they get
set
this,
bonus.
their set bonus that
Oh.
lets them get the occasional reset on their Divine Storm, which is, it's night and day. It's straight up, it's all the difference for ret.
Okay.
And think about that with overall too. Like that's where they start shining, right? Like you're just
Right.
able to like constantly divine storm. Oh my god, the damage.
Right. So you like want one ret in your raid or in like your guild, like for the entire expansion. But just one. Don't ever give me more than one ret until we're in ICC with everyone having, you know, 4-piece T10.
Well, that was easy. Sarthe, anything you want to speak on your favorite class one?
No, I'm like in full agreement. Like, right? Like you see so many of these tier lists right now on YouTube or like write-ups on Reddit or something, and everyone's saying like ret is going to be so insane, but like it's really not until you have this crazy cracked out set bonus, and like that obviously massively buffs your single target, but also your overall, which is where I think ret is going to like start shining so much, especially as myself, obviously I look towards like the speedrun scene much more often than not, and that's where ret really comes in. So like right now ret is a utility thing, but like it's given the same buff as an arcane mage, which you have arcane mages early in the game. So is it actually necessary to have the ret early in the game? We'll see. It depends on what your group comp is. So for early version of the game, my plan personally is to either tank, probably tank, and then swap out and convince like my guild leader, like Lottie, is like, yeah, I tanked so that I can parse or pump now. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, that's a good one. Do you guys feel like Lich King has way more gear dependent than player skill dependency, or is it raid comp dependent?
Ooh, good question.
Gear dependent than player skill. No,
I
I
think
feel like
player
it's more
skill.
skill dependent,
Yeah.
but it depends on the phase. Like straight up, like phase 1 of Wrath, like with Nax OS EOE, is going to be easier than Kara, Gruul, Mag was for TBC. Like it's a easier phase than that. So phase 1 is going to be face roll easy, and then phase 2 is going to be straight up like the hardest raid that Classic has ever seen with Ulduar.
Oh, it's
And
twist.
then,
Oh.
so, what's up?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
And then like phase 3, like TOGC and Onyxia, like another easy phase. It's going to be pretty approachable. Like kind of I get more like TK vibes from that in terms of difficulty. And then ICC again, like we get hit with another extremely hard raid where like skill matters, and you just can't like straight up out gear it for a while unless you just want to farm the content for 10 weeks until you get like full BiS and then face roll it. Sure.
It seems like most of these classes that I've played so far on the servers are all much more skill in playing the classes.
Absolutely.
Not just warlocks, obviously warlocks, but even the other ones that I played, even the healers. You know what I mean?
That's
more
like the
intuitive.
most exciting thing about Wrath of the Lich King is you go away from classic. TBC still has very often a lot of, let's be realistic, one button classes, and Wrath of the Lich King, there's so many more options, there's so many more cooldowns also that you're using not only on yourself but on other people. Like as a rogue, even you're using, like, when am I gonna Trix another person to buff them? Like when are we gonna like exchange different cooldowns? Like it's just all so much more intricate, and the raid callouts, like Crix was mentioning earlier, having a good raid leader who's tracking all of these cooldowns and calling out so many different things is just it just the level of play between these two expansions I think is going to shoot up so much, and it's so exciting.
I agree.
I agree.
There's no more twisting for Rugsz?
No.
Why is that? Is it missing a skill? I don't know anything about paladins. So.
No, I mean, you'll just swap seals depending on the fight. If it's a cleave fight, you'll go command. If it's a single target fight, or even just like a single target portion of the encounter, you'll go to the other one.
Cool.
What's it called? Corruption.
All right. Well, you have something else to add before the next one? Hit it.
No, I'm ready. I'm ready for Shadow Priest. And I like that. I like what we just talked about in terms of like skill, defining a player rather than gear. And Shadow Priest is one of them. I straight up think Shadow Priest is a really good like definition in terms of like when you see someone who's good at Shadow Priest, they're noticed 100%.
You'll see it right away, dude. It's
you
crazy.
You will straight up see it. I have played Shadow Priest and I'm dog at it, bro. I'm not.
Where do you want to rank it?
I'd still think like so their single target damage is definitely better than Boomy, but their overall is going to be way less than Boomy. So I kind of want to put them in like a B tier because you don't stack a Shadow Priest really. You kind of take one. Sometimes you'll take two if you just need to have like a backup for whatever reason, or if you have like a Holy Priest who's like respecking Shadow because you don't need 5 heals, then you will have 2 Shadow Priests in that moment, sure.
Yeah, that's what
I would put them
to
there.
Felipe just now. This is about damage. I think including utility, you would go to A, but we're like strictly talking damage on this one. Otherwise, I would agree with you.
Unfortunately, their utility like comes at a big sacrifice, a lot like Rhett. Like when they need to cast a big Divine Hymn, that's like 5 seconds of like lost uptime just to like help the raid out. It blows, dude. But Mindseer is super good. Like everyone is crazy about Mindseer, and everyone's super pumped about getting an AoE ability on Shadow. And like, yes, like get pumped. Mindseer is good. Feels really satisfying using that. Shadow Priest has a good, rewarding play style, but they aren't like they're never S tier. They do get really good in ICC, of course. Like they scale really, really well, but you don't stack them at any point, and they're not going to be like topping meters, except for Hodier hard mode and Vezak's hard mode. They are specifically really good at those fights.
Yeah,
and they're super useful. Like you straight up want like a Shadow Priest in every 10-man when you go into Ulduar. They're really useful in ICC. I love having them for Lich King fights to soak Vile Spirits. They're like you have to have them for Algalon to soak Big Bang. Otherwise, you're sacrificing like massive cooldowns to cover for it. So Disperse is super good, super helpful.
Yeah, that's a really good cooldown that is just like honestly just can save so many things. I can just think of like so many uses for that as we move forward that are going to be really good. Yeah.
It's definitely more of like a PvP ability.
Yeah.
Dispersion. There aren't like a whole lot of the times that you like, genuinely use it in PvE, but when you do use it, it's like mandatory. And they don't have mana issues to begin with because Dispersion gives you back mana, which like you don't need as a Shadow Priest. Like they have plenty of mana on top of the fact that they have Shadow Fiend rolling often. They bring good buffs they have a replenishment and spell hit. Their Devouring Plague is going to do more damage thanks to Unholy existing in the raid, increasing their disease damage done. So
also it doesn't cost a shit ton of mana, and it's just a dot that you keep up full time as a Shadow Priest now.
They're solid and they feel great to play. Crix, you said you played Shadow, right?
Yeah, they do so much more damage. It's so much more damage. Just as their talents is to fluctuate into more shadowy spells that makes them do like a lot more damage, including Mindseer, which is exactly like Mind Flay, except for it hits everybody around it, which is nice. So you literally have like a burst, and it's a lot of damage too. Like Mindseer is a shit ton of damage. I love Shadow. Shadow was a lot of fun. I think Boomy was more fun to me, but Shadow was more single target. Boomy felt more AoE because Boomy's putting up dots, insect, everything, and then star falling on 1 minute versus, you just got Mindseer, putting dots up and then Mindseering.
Yeah. I think of all the classes that we've talked about when it comes to speedrunning, Shadow actually might be one of the first classes I would drop entirely from the roster.
Mana. There's big mana issues with Shadow.
And they're like overall damage and Mindseer's channeled, right? You can't move.
Yeah.
Can't move.
Yeah.
I think it would be tough to make a case for him.
Yeah. Agreed. Not even knowing everything about Wrath, but like thinking about it in ahead of time.
A lot
about
of fun,
how
though.
classic players go into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's like when you, for those that play Shadow Priest now, it's like exactly what you were looking for. It is exactly what all these utility classes, Ellie, Enhance, Shadow, Boomy, all these things that come in, and you guys are kind of like meme. You're here for utility. Well, you're there for utility, but now you're actually pumping, and it's no longer getting disrespected. So it's really nice, especially for a Shadow Priest where I play Shadow. You know how Shadow is. It's like you're just trash. You get trolled for it all the time. You get flamed like it's your fault. You're doing shit like it's my class, right? And now you guys get some big boy stuff and make it a lot of fun for you guys.
Yeah. What about Ellie?
So Ellie Sham. You know, I gotta put you Ellie Sham, like first one's gonna have to go C tier. I'm sorry. I know Crix just hyped up the meme specs about finally being good. I hate to shit on you like this, but truthfully, like throughout the entire expansion, like Ellie Sham just ain't it.
Worst caster.
I feel like the experience that I saw with classic TBC with the power level of Elemental Shaman is basically like identical to what we're going to get. I'm predicting that's what we're going to get in Wrath because they will be great in phase 1. You'll see them do really good damage phase 1 and you'll be like, oh my god, like is that an Ellie Sham like doing like above top 10 DPS?
Blasting,
like what the hell?
Yeah.
Guzu making like some random video of like, oh my god, this Shaman pumps. Like they fall off a fucking cliff, dude. They're not even like that desirable either because you could bring that spell haste totem that they're bringing by any other shaman. You could bring any other shaman to Bloodlust. The Totem of Wrath is actually being covered by your Demo lock, and it's not just the same buff, but it's an even better buff provided by your Demo lock. So Ellie Sham just doesn't have a good place in Wrath. But let me walk that back real quick. They're not like C tier, like how a Prot Warrior is like a C tier or D tier. Ellie Sham you can play throughout the whole expansion and be completely fine. There's one thing that like Ellie Sham does have, which is kind of nice, is their Earthbind Totem is an AoE root, which is pretty useful in a couple different fights. Some that I think about is like Freya hard mode and Deathbringer Sourfang. Those fights, like it's actually kind of useful and kind of nice. But I'm stretching here when I make those cases. You know, like Ellie Sham is not like amazing. But if you wanted to play Ellie Sham and your guild's like cool with you playing Ellie Sham the whole expansion, go for it. Like you're not gonna feel heavy.
Right off rip, it's not there. It has a fucking AoE. It's dusted off on overall by everybody else. Why are we even? There's no. If anybody confused of why it's not a B tier, it loses to both of these on single target and AoE. What do you mean?
Yeah, and that's like
why
so.
You guys, I'm
so
confused at
important
why
to
you guys are
consider.
even confused about this.
They do get what lava burst, right? So like at least it's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It feels great. If you want to have some good playing around with like snapshotting a massive fire elemental, you can. You know, I don't know, I'm stretching again. Like it's probably fun and it's great and it's honestly not all that bad. But tier list wise, it's a C. It's a C overall.
Yeah.
Not in tier 7. Yeah, this is overall. I would like to do a tier 7 one when we get closer to it for sure. Euroflip. Right now we're just kind of. It's hard to do it, obviously, as you can tell, but we're trying to like keep it more like okay and talk as we do it because there's for people looking at overall at their classes, right?
Right.
Yeah, as the
and
casters,
like I said,
they're the most lackluster on DPS that I've seen. But true, we probably haven't played with any good Ellies, but I highly doubt Rugsz hasn't played with a good Ellie considering his realm. You know, he's in good guilds. So
I've played with good Ellies actually, and Ellies can genuinely be like a top 4 DPS on Patchwork in phase 1. They genuinely can. But that's like the highlight of Ellie Sham right there. You know?
It's top DPS on Nax.
Yeah.
That's gonna feel bad. And then no overall damage. That's just the biggest hit is like your buffs that you're bringing for the raid can be dealt with and even better from other classes that are more useful and stronger. And you have no like AoE. There's nothing there to really pump your overall, which is like really that is a huge crutch for any version of any player from a classic guild. Even if you're in quote unquote dad guild, it just slows your whole raid technically, right? You have the place, and you made an argument that like they're always there. You're not going to feel like heavy, like you're carrying the class by any means. Like if you were bringing like a frost mage in right now in classic, you'd be doing like them doing like 600 DPS is like a 99, and you're like, yeah, you're totally carrying this person, and their AoE damage is non-existent. but like, so it's a class that's not like weighing you down, but just not nearly as strong as the others.
Okay, so we had a Blood DK and we're second best guild on Realm, and you have them as don't bring. Min-max is killing the game. So two things. One, this is just for DPS. This is not about the tank. This is the BiS tank when we talked about tanks. So, and if you're talking about DPS, you shouldn't have brought him as DPS. You can, once again, you can bring fucking 2 sub-rogues to your raid if you want to and get Realm something. That doesn't matter. I'm just saying there's a BiS, there's a ranking, and that's what we're doing. That's all
I mean, Crix and I, in the last
is.
server that we played on, had a Blood DPS in our guild. And he, like, did fine. And genuinely, like, his DPS windows, when he popped all his cooldowns on, I don't know if you remember, Crix, but on XT hard mode, when we're doing, like, hitting the hard mode by killing the heart on XT, he was, like, top 2 damage. Crazy. But
it's just not as much as here. So when you look at the rankings, you got to think like this. Like how someone said, how did you put Shadow in B tier? Because Shadow doesn't do as much damage as either of these Hunters or the Feral. That's why. We're not including utility. This is literally DPS. I forget that people join, so you don't catch on that, but it's all about damage. Overall damage, single target's all we're talking about today.
Yeah,
we'll get more to the nitty-gritties as we do more episodes. Yeah, we're just trying to, overall tiers, give people an idea of what they kind of want to play for the long run, you know? Yeah, you can bring whatever you want. Literally, you can bring whatever you want, and you'll clear all the raids, just like you can in TVC. But there's people like that, but there are a majority of people do like the min-max, and a majority of people do want to play what's best, and that's what this is made of. That's what this is for.
Yes.
Yeah. And like we said at the beginning, like any tier list, there's always going to be things that change, especially because we've mentioned for every class about like how scripting can be different on the live servers than private servers. But also it's like, what are we focusing on is like 1, single target DPS, 2, overall damage. This is also classes just scale so crazy during some phases. So we're talking about that on all of these. So it's always kind of like a look at like, is it as strong and where is it throughout the entire expansion? Because eventually we'll have to make absolutely tier lists for every single phase. And also thinking about like, what if you're looking at like parsing or bringing a utility or your single target DPS towards like, what are you bringing towards like a speed and overall raid? So there's so many things that go into this, and like this is like a generalization of where things should be.
And we're gonna have we're gonna have PP episodes. We're gonna do all healing episodes. We'll get like Antfall or some big brain healers. We'll get some tank episodes. This is just a broad one, kind of like, hey guys, Sarthe and I are starting Lich King ones. Here we go, type shit, you know. So it's okay, guys. We'll hit everyone, I promise. Enhance.
Ooh. Okay, so if you remember our conversation about Feral, everything that we talked about with Feral is basically similar situation with Enhance, where we've seen some really favorable scripting with Enhance that straight up could be exactly like that in Classic Wrath, but I don't know. So to me, I would put Enhance as like a high A. I think in a previous video of mine, I put them in S, or at least for like a couple tiers, I put them in S. I would put them in A. I think Enhance is genuinely slept on. For the most part, I have played in Enhance a couple times, and like people like straight up sleep on you. You're like somewhat not desired in your raid because maybe your guild or that raid has a resto shaman already, and they choose to not run a second shaman, which I think is a mistake. I think I would run 2 shamans, but whatever. So Enhance brings a couple things. They bring the attack power buff, the same thing that a marksman brings, the same thing that a blood DK brings. So not really very unique there. You can spec in for enhancing totems, which your resto shaman could also spec into, but it's going to increase the strength and agility of your strength of earth totem, which makes you, uniquely desirable if you spec into that. And Enhance does actually really good overall damage. If we're talking overall, like their cleave is phenomenal. It's hindered a little bit by movement because the main portion of your AoE damage is going to be your magma totem. If you're dragging mobs out of your magma totem, it's going to feel just as bad as any other AoE class that's getting their shit dragged out of. But they're great, man. We have seen some favorable scripting that, again, and when I say this, I'm thinking like lightning shield proc rate, flame tongue weapon proc rate, fire elemental scripting that is either like overtuned or weirdly snapshotting things that it maybe shouldn't be snapshotting, like haste and spell power, maybe like an attack power maybe not quite calculated right. Things like this go into why Enhance is straight up #1 DPS on Patchwork for Realm First racing guilds in private servers. Straight up #1. Straight up #1 on Algalon. number one on like all these big fights. Like Enhance can straight up freaking pump. It's crazy. And when I say Enhance, I'm talking about Spell Hance. That's kind of the meta with Enhance and Wrath. So it can be insane, but I would not be surprised if Wrath Classic comes around and like something happens and the scripting isn't great and Enhance falls into like a B tier class for the whole expansion. They could be B tier, but they could be S tier. So I'm going to put them in A personally.
Very
I have
fluid.
no idea what you just pulled up, bro.
Oh, just fucking meme shit. No worries.
Okay.
You didn't touch on it yet, but Spellhance, Fire Nova, the big fucking, what's making them with that AoE? Is that like something that you run all the time, or is that just an early game when it's OP leveling and shit?
There's actually some debate around this. I know this one guy who used to play Enhance like one trick, and he was very much against Spellhance, and he would go the classic like attack power damage Enhance build with Wind Fury and Flame Tongue weapon. But the meta is to go Spellhance, which is where you have a spell power damage in your main hand weapon, and you do double Flame Tongue weapon application to it. And you can get like spell power off pieces like trinkets or rings or wrists and things like that. And you build for like heavy haste, and it's really god tier actually. It's pretty insane. It's really, really fun too. I've recently just posted like an old video of mine where I'm playing Spellhance on like a random ass like Lich King kill. It's like super random, but the class is like, I think Enhance and Wrath is the most fun DPS in the entire game. Like I said, with Holy being the most fun healer, Enhance is the most fun DPS.
A lot of people are going to be, I think a lot of fucking people are going to be playing Enhance, especially because of the Spellhance. Like largely because of that, I would say. Because that's like a new kind of Enhance, right?
The skill seal, yeah, it's totally new. Like it goes completely different playstyle from what it is in TBC. But every single global is a decision and a priority, and you're reacting off of procs, and you have a snapshot mechanic. Like there's so many layers to the enjoyment of Enhance that makes like a good Enhance player like stand out by a mile. It's very, very, very rewarding and a very cool, very modernized play style. Enhance is just like on a whole nother level when it comes to playability, difficulty of the class, and enjoyment from doing it well.
There you go.
It's good to see the class getting like a lot of like more intricacy, and like see the difference between it can be like a very meta class, or like if you see someone not playing it to its highest potential, then it could just be like not nearly as useful.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
But if you have any doubts about Spellhance, like my buddy Antfall wrote a guide on it. I featured on it, which is kind of fun. Yeah, you just linked it.
Yeah, I just linked it. Watch that if you guys want to do it.
He also has some VODs of him playing it too.
Exactly. I'll link Antfall shit. This is one of those. There's a lot of content creators out here, and you would know that who to watch and who not to watch. And I'm not gonna say who not to watch, but this is one of the ones that you should watch. So check this dude out.
Yeah.
I believe it's with Progress as well. He's moving into Progress for Lich King.
Right. I'll vouch for Antfall. He's like one of those private server raid leaders who like has raid led like 6 different private server guilds, and now he's gonna go play for Progress and be their Spellhance for when Wrath comes out. Like the dude pumps, and he is obsessed with Wrath of Lich King. It's all he does. He lives and breathes it.
There you go. Link ahead. Check him out, guys. He's a good guy. I'm going to bathroom again. Assassination? Is that what that is? I've been chugging water. I'm trying to get all healthy, so I'm just.
That one's combat.
Okay, let's talk about combat then. Wait,
I feel like you could almost group the 2 rogue specs together, kind of like what we did with Hunter.
Because you're gonna have to swap them.
Yeah, essentially. In phase 1, like you 1000% want to be assassination, because assassination is just subjectively better than combat. But if you don't have a warrior in your raid or an arms warrior to provide the physical damage debuff that combat brings, then you actually should probably have 1 combat, 1 assassination, and 0 warriors in phase 1. That's probably BiS. Anyway, in terms of where to put them on the tier, I feel like assassination has to go above feral in A, assassination in A, and combat for overall is an S tier. That's where I would put the 2 of them.
Combat. This is combat, right? I'm retarded.
That one's assassination. That one's assassination.
Got him backwards.
Yeah, you got it.
Got him backwards.
Yeah, I did the same shit on one of like my first videos that I like went viral for. I had the icons mixed up. You got them mixed up. No, you got them mixed up.
Okay.
Sorry, I got the delay on my screen.
There we go.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I got these icons mixed up.
Okay, there you go. Got it. All right, you talk about
Combat's cracked though. it needs a second to build up. And in that second, all it takes is Ulduar. Ulduar is like literally the defining point. And I'm not sure if it's when you get Mjolnir trinket or if it's when you get like the good fist weapon from Ulduar. Like when is like the actual like turning point for you to switch from assassination to combat. But I think Sarthe, what's funny about like speed running in Classic Wrath, we might see combat like earlier than I'm saying now. I think we could even see combat in tier 7 with or without like an arms warrior in the raid providing the physical debuff, because Blade Fury and like the AoE that combat has, that it is just like objectively better on cleave than assassination. But rogues and wrath just in general, they feel great. They have so much at their disposal. Tricks of the Trade is a phenomenal ability where rogues, because they don't bring any buff to the raid, they get to give somebody tricks, which just increases someone else's damage and their threat done for a couple seconds. The way this gets used oftentimes is you are using it on warlocks or a shadow priest. Sometimes you'll use it on a tank to help a tank threat, but you will use it ideally to snapshot certain dots or certain like a drained soul on an execute. And so Tricks of the Trade ends up becoming like this really highly sought after external that you want to see used like all the time. And people will have drama over who's getting tricks, who's getting power infusion, and you'll literally pay rogues like thousands of gold to give you tricks so that you can parse.
Warlocks.
Yeah.
So, dude.
Sarthe buff and Crix confirmed. Oh yeah,
Crix,
get that macro too to eliminate the threat.
Yeah, Crix was like, "You better be leveling a rogue for this private realm. I'm gonna need that tricks. You know it." That's actually something really quickly I wanted to bring up. It's something we don't really necessarily see as often in TBC yet. Is snapshotting things, and it's a massive thing in Wrath of the Lich King. Again, it's like getting all of your buffs up before you do any ability, because it keeps what you had on you, and Tricks is going to be really useful for that.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic for that. I think about one of my favorite fights is Hodir hard mode, and Crix, I don't know if you ever got the chance to do it on 25 man, but damn, that fight's great. And I really hope that we get the 2-minute enrage version of it when Classic Wrath comes, instead of the 3-minute, or not enrage, the hard mode for it. And man, getting Tricks on a fire mage who maybe just has their like flare proc that has PI rolling, and they're standing in like a light beam and like have all the stacks going on Hodir, and you give that person Tricks. Oh my god, dude. Like, it's crazy. Tricks is, it's funny because like you bringing 2 rogues to a raid is kind of meta. You could run more or less, but 2 is pretty comfortable. And they're like weirdly desirable, like Tricks is actually something that like your other DPS want.
So everyone's like, yeah, get that rogue in here, instead of like TVC where they're like, is he a buyer? Like now it's like, no, fucking bring him now. Yeah.
As long as all your buffs
I'm gonna
are covered,
pay him.
Yeah. As long as every buff is covered, you're good.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. And also just the damage output from a rogue, especially with now having actual cleave, and looking forward to like speed running and stuff. Just overall damage from a rogue is just going to be something we're back, and like we're on our like up and coming time right now here, late phase in TBC, where tier 6 just scales super well, and armor pen for melee is crazy. But just throughout the entire expansion of Wrath, there's utility for rogues in different specs and in general.
Yeah.
Orc or troll for PvE? I mean, if you can blood fury, you want a blood fury, in my opinion. But
well, so you actually want to go troll if you're assassination, because assassination really wants that berserking buff, but you 1000% need to be orc for combat. So it's generally agreed upon to go orc for overall, and just take a minor DPS loss for Nax being orc assassination, and then when you go combat, like your BiS.
Forever.
You're on Rugsz. It's still troll for combat. Either way, there's one of them. Troll or orc. I would love to yell.
They're both good.
But yeah. Thank you, Euro. I appreciate that, brother.
What about Blood Elf BiS RP? Blood Elf female, do that 360 jump. BiS. All right, on to Rug's favorite class. Rug's favorite class in the game, boys. What does he have to say?
Warriors!
All right. Yo, this one's gonna be tough because the whole point of this tier list is like a general overall tier list, and straight up Warrior has the most evolution throughout the entire expansion than any class in the entire game, where they are like worse than Shadow Priest, Boomy, Ellie in phase 1, like Arms and Fury like are both D tier in phase 1, but they go all the way to fucking S tier Kingdom by the end of the expansion. So placing them in an overall feels really weird and hard to do. Like I guess like you average it out and put them in an A or B, you know? Wherever you put them, you have to put Fury ahead of Arms because Fury is the premier like scaling, the better DPS overall spec. But the agreed upon meta in terms of what you're doing with your Warrior is you will take one to your raid and he will be Arms. And he brings this physical damage debuff, which is great. And he also brings Commanding Shout, which is raid wide. And it's unique because the only other class that's really going to cover commanding, I think, is like a Warlock Imp, which I think is also still party wide in Wrath. So if you want Commanding Shout, you'll take a Warrior. But their overall and their single target is going to be leaving much to be desired. They will be low on the meters for phase 1, like bottom, absolute bottom phase 1. Phase 2, they'll start creeping up. They'll beat a few people in certain fights. They'll be like straight up number 1 DPS or number 2 on Kolagarn because it's a 3-target fight permanently. They'll be decent on something like Yogg because they're super mobile. And then tier 9, like they're kind of hitting their stride. At that point, like they can go Fury because they have so much scaling at their disposal and so much armor pin at their disposal. Your rogues at that point should all be combat at that point, so you're not missing anything by not being Arms. So you can be Fury by the time you're in tier 9, and in the tier 10, like Arms or Fury Warrior is kind of like the class that you want to funnel your first Shadowmourne to because they are that good. So I know that we said this a lot with TBC, is everyone said the same shit. Like, oh, Fury scales in TBC, it's not going to be good early. Like, Warriors are bad early. And everyone keeps, like, telling me, like, we need to be careful, like, what we say about, like, early predictions on Warriors being crap. And I think there's some merit to that because of the way, like, Glancing Blows are scripted in Classic TBC, but I'm not convinced. Like, I've seen so many underwhelming Warriors in my time that I still could not put Warrior any higher than a D or C tier in phase 1. And in phase 2, like they are a C/B. And so I think overall, yeah, I think A, like where you put them, Crix, on this list is great. No, I would leave them just where they were in A because they are like, they're going to be great and they're going to scale great and they're really fun to play, but they're just super hard to place. You know what I mean? Like they just change so much with scaling, more than any class in the whole game.
Would you say more so than, sorry, Crix.
No, go ahead.
Would you say more so than, so like in Classic, it was like pretty obvious to Classic players. They're like, we're going to come in and we're going to be pumping. Like, especially for like, I mean, early phases there's a lot of cleave. So like Warriors do really well on overall because they can cleave always. Their cleave damage is great and they're very mobile. They don't have to wait for like drinking or anything. They're very solid in that front. But is their cleave damage it's just like not as efficient as like say your Frost or if it's a longer fight, right, you're Unholy. So like early on, even then it's just still something else just does it better. Exactly. So that there's no real point as in, yeah, or like for TBC, it when you're in those situations, no one really does it better.
Exactly.
So,
and I can tell you right now, like the Realm First competing guilds for this fresh server that's coming out this Friday, like none of them are running a Warrior in their tier 7 racing comp. It's not desirable. Even on a customly buffed server, the Commanding Shout is not enough to cover the DPS loss of literally just having a Warrior exist in your raid.
Someone asked, having seen TBC predictions, went from claiming Fury Warrior was going to be the worst spec in the game to it being the highest output. How do you feel confident in claiming Fury won't see play in early Wrath? The only thing real quick about that is I don't know who said Fury Warrior is going to be the worst in the game. I don't remember anybody saying that. Also,
I reacted to a video today of it.
Who was it though?
Someone made a video about like how warriors are going to be really good, and Asmongold reacted to it, and then like he was just getting just like chat was just ripping into him, and like Reddit apparently exploded ripping into him. But like I at the time was like, there's no way warriors aren't going to be solid even early on. They're so strong. But like now the only difference potentially, and I'm not even sure about this because warriors are always like can always like come out and prove us all wrong. They've always just destroyed. I'm not saying they're going to be bad by any means. It's just the only difference in Wrath is that there's a class that can do what they do potentially better. So it's going to leave that like skepticism up to what we will see now. But at first, like early on before TBC, I was like, there's no anyone who thinks warriors are going to be bad has no idea the classic scripting in this game, you know? So it's going to be interesting, but late game warrior is so exciting.
I'm definitely skeptical because I was one of those guys who said Fury was going to be ass in TBC Classic, and I bit my words almost immediately. And I think that Warrior is going to be better in early phases in Classic, exactly in Tier 7, just because I'm going to assume so. That's just I don't know the game. I don't know that much of it compared to them being trash, because I don't see why are they so bad early game in T7?
In Wrath?
Yeah. What made them bad?
I don't know, man. They just they aren't hitting, and I can't tell you exactly what it is. It's probably like availability to armor pin, how it's like so low early, low weapon damage.
Is it low though because you have all the Sunwell shit? I know they nerfed it. Then they nerfed the armor pin at the end of Sunwell. Did they? Or they nerfed the haste or something?
They nerf it, but it's not quite what you think it is. It's actually basically the same value. They kind of re-script the way armor pin works. So even though the number
30%.
looks smaller, it's still kind of technically the same.
Well, I say that because like on private servers, you guys aren't going back, just like on TBC servers, we weren't going back and getting Nax gear. So private server people aren't doing that either, which is why I asked that. Versus,
Well, we actually are, bro.
oh, are you? Versus like a whole Sunwell geared stacked up Fury Warrior with a shit ton of armor pin already from Sunwell going into Lich King. Is that not going to be
Right.
big?
So typically like there's 2 weeks from a server launch till like Nax release. And during those 2 weeks, like you hit level 80 like ASAP, and then you run Sunwell like 2 IDs worth. And you try to split run it too. So we would be running Sunwell for Realm First Racing for Naxxramas and private servers.
Yeah, now that you say that, I actually seen looking for group. I actually remember seeing a lot of looking for group Black Temples and Sunwells and stuff on servers, yeah.
And there's 2 main reasons for it. And the biggest one is Rogue 2-piece or 3-piece. No, it's 2-piece. It's the increased haste on your slice and dice. That is still pre-raid vest and slot for assassination rogues going into Naxxramas. It's phenomenal. 2-piece Slayer is crazy. Another reason is like some of the gear is just still like straight up tier, like pre-raid BiS. Like it's better than heroic gear that drops for certain item slots for certain classes. Some things that come to mind are like the caster shoulders are going to be really good. There's a good chest piece from Sunwell that some classes might want. Your Resto Shaman really wants the tier 6 2-piece, so getting like a wrist and boots on your Resto Shaman is super good. So there's some random things that like we actually went back to Sunwell to get, and one of the things that we went back to Sunwell to get wasn't armor pin.
Oh,
You know, like it's just
what about any of the
it's
trinks and
not
stuff?
there.
Yeah,
I don't think armor pin is very
Yet.
good on warrior early anyway. Like I think first of all you go arms early. Arms is going to do more damage than Fury, not only just providing like that debuff for your raid, but it does more damage than Fury. And I think you're actually stacking strength way more than you're stacking armor pin, because there's just straight up not enough armor pin for you to like even consider it.
Okay, this is the one thing I get asked about more than anything. Obviously Warlock, how Warlock is, but is Fury. Is like it's Fury. And every time I say like, hey, arms to Fury, I get flamed because I don't have a proper answer to it because I don't play fucking Fury, you know. And I just feel like that's the same thing. Is I'm scared to say anything because I'm like the spokesman for all this shit. I don't want to put my foot in my mouth and say they're garbage, but then they end up, you know, like I did for TBC, and they end up being good. So I'm terrified at this point.
Right.
I'm fucking terrified to say anything's bad at this point.
Yeah,
That's
just put it
probably
on
the
me.
most-
Just blame me. I'm the warrior hater.
Yeah, it's probably the most skeptical class, right? That's the most up in the air, and there's gonna be so many people going so hard to min max that class and figure out every way to do it. I would say I just never doubt the warriors and how well they can do things. So it's gonna be really interesting to see. I'm always a big fan, and I think they always pump.
I just don't doubt the Degens in Classic that play Warrior to figure out how to make Warrior good. That's what more I'm scared of, right? see it like Alondo listening to this is going, we'll fucking see, bud. He's going to Warlock, I think, but you know that he's going to go fuck with his Fury Warrior probably. So yeah. I'm excited to see it. That's one thing I'm out from. I didn't play Classic, but from TBC private servers into TBC Classic, the metas, it didn't really seem, a lot of people are saying in chat, they didn't really change. Nothing really caught us by surprise with Classic besides the Warrior thing, right? Besides the Warrior shit, no other classes really like, oh my God, blew our mind, like at all. Everyone knew Arcane was going to be good. Everyone knew Fury was going to be good at the end of the game, which they are now. It was just that not nobody, but a majority of us assumed wrongly that Fury would be ass until the end of the game, which is what we're saying now, which I'm scared of.
TBC was it panned out the exact way I thought it would. Like literally to a T, the exact way I thought it would for like all of the classes, like, and where every class is in the meta and stuff, like 100% where I thought it would. And I'm really happy about that. But Wrath, I'm on the other side of the spectrum where I'm just like, I don't know. Tell me, Rugsz. Let's
TBC's like, isn't it amazing like how we went from like a horrible meta of Classic and then go to TBC and like every spec is wanted in their own weird way. It's great. And then we go into Wrath and like every spec like has their place and your parses aren't limited to being in a perfect group comp.
Yeah.
Like Wrath, like the quality of life of that alone is like really desirable.
Yeah, someone asked that earlier. I forgot to mention about the parsing, if it was more like comp based like it is now or skill based, and it is players. I don't know about all classes, but every class that I've touched has been a 100% player skill, bro.
It shouldn't be any issue getting all the raid buffs in Wrath.
Yeah, because it's way wide, easy.
Yeah, just make your roster look like a rainbow is what I tell everyone.
All right, now to talk about the worst class in the game. Now to talk about mages.
Hashtag fuck mages.
Now to talk about mages. If you want to go ahead and touch on Arcane and Fire, bud, I got nothing to say. Besides, I've not seen them do that good of damage. Everyone tells me that they do though, so I'm gonna shut up. But even in our raids, Rugsz, we did not have good. Either we didn't have good mages in there, or mages were bad. So
I think mages are good. I think you're sleeping on them. I know you're tilted about it, but I think they're really good. In terms of where to put them on this tier list, I thought about this before we got here. Oh, he's pissed. He's pissed. I would put Arcane in like an A tier and Fire in an S tier for overall.
Okay.
The way that it works is you go Arcane for phase 1, and the reason you do that is because Fire is missing so much crit and so much hit because you have the freedom to spec into hit talents as Arcane, but you don't as Fire. And so you have to wait until Ulduar, and especially when you get the tier bonuses from Ulduar, that's when Fire like really comes online. You have good amount of crit. You're not worried about hit capping, and you have a really, really good tier set. Like mages are great. Fire is like,
so do you want to do
one
like
super fun to play?
So your Arcane to start, right, and then you go Fire. So Arcane A, and then in game Fire is S.
That's what I would put. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Both are great. You know, like Arcane is super CD reliant. The shorter the fight, the better. They have like an absolutely insane opener, and they will pump early, and then they'll just fall off the longer the fight goes. Meanwhile, Fire is phenomenal. Another really good like passively cleaving class. The way that you're putting up Living Bomb on multiple targets, which actually helps your single target DPS, is great. The procs are great. The instant casts are great. I mean, Fire is just really, really, really solid, especially in fights where it matters. I think about fights that it matters. Like my first go-to in my brain is always like Firefighter and Lich King. It's like it's a really, really tough fight in phase 2 and like the hardest fight in the game, like in phase 4 or 5, whenever ICC comes out. And Fire is phenomenal at both of those fights. Really, really good. They have the best mobility of every ranged in the game. Maybe Hunter has better mobility than Mage, but Fire is just really, really, really strong. And I absolutely love them. They will top multiple meters, and they are one of the classes to beat in terms of overall. They are great. Actually, speaking of overall, I'm not quite sure how their trash damage will be. That'll be something worth seeing.
That was my question.
I can't quite speak too much on the Mage AoE and the Mage overall. That's definitely one of my weak points. So don't let me like be the one to say like Fire Mage is going to be crazy overall. But I do think that like their kit makes sense that it should be.
Don't bring them.
No. Whoa.
Oh, okay. I thought you. Sorry. You said S tier. That sounded like don't bring him to me. Sorry.
I heard they're in the tanks and healers section.
Randomly though, is there anything that we would do here? Like if you had to put S tier in order, if that makes sense. Like how we went Shadow Priest, Boomy, Ret in that order, kind of like if that even matters, right?
It's kind of weird. It's kind of tough to say. I guess I could put Mage over both of the DK specs.
Yeah.
Late game.
Yeah. What's nice about the DKs is they're just like very tanky, very reliable. That's like one of the reasons why you'd want to stack a DK is like they do phenomenal DPS with very little gear and they don't die to mechanics. So that's why DK is like crazy good. Fire Mage has got to just probably be better though. I'm not quite sure.
But then it's also late game. Like if you look at like Fury late game, then if you were looking at purely Fury late game, then it would be up there in the same spot, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like Fury would be even above Fire Mage for that reason if we're going like that. So it's tough. Like the whole overall thing.
That's true. That's a good way to think about it. Yeah, because you go Fury at the end of the game. Fury's clapping right now, so this can actually be an S tier with him because that's how you're treating Fire Mage.
Right. Yeah. It's tough to say, man. I don't want to put Fury in S tier for this list. For fuck no, dude. Because then everyone's gonna see this and they're gonna be like, "Oh, I'm going Warrior."
Well, yeah.
And
Well,
the last thing I want to see is a bunch of Warriors in Classic Wrath because I don't want them in my roster at all.
The problem is what people are gonna do. This is a long video. They're not gonna watch it all. They're just gonna skim through it and see this and be like, and instantly so the comments inflame instead of seeing the context on it.
Yo, fucking Rugsz put Warrior in S tier.
Yeah, dude. All right, so obviously these are untouchable. Like we don't need to even like.
He makes a new category.
This is objective. Objectively speaking. Okay, no, really though.
God.
Go ahead, Rugsz.
No, really though. Like Warlock is, in my honest opinion, Warlock is the #1 best DPS class in the game, in Wrath.
Okay, now tell us for real.
No, I'm for real, dude. I'm as dead.
This is what I would say if I had. You know more about me because you've done all the tiers more in hard mode, but I would say Affliction S, Demo A, Destro B. What do you think?
Yeah, that seems fine by me. We'll talk about each one by one. Let's talk about Destro real quick since I think it's the worst of the three. And you're gonna see this pretty soon, Crix. Is Warmane has some interesting scripts with Destro lock, where you could go pure Destro, or you could even go like this hybrid Destro demo build, where you get like this execute on top of having conflag. It actually pumps, and I don't think that's proper scripting. In fact, the majority of warlocks, good warlock players in the Wrath scene, think that's very incorrect, and that probably will not be the case when it comes to Classic. If you want to play Destro, sure, it's like a B tier DPS, but it's worse than the other two DPS specs, so there's no reason to go Destro, truthfully, unless we get like some crazy scripting like we're getting on Warmane or something.
I think there's definitely gonna be some fights that I'll be Destro. I have to measure that over like Freya, for instance. I have to measure that over Demo, obviously, because the Demo will be good on that fight as well. I think it's going to be a lot of Affliction unless you're the Demo, because there's like a Demo buff spec, which is what you are, but there's also a Demo pump spec that you're not buffing anybody. You're actually there to do more damage as Demo, and I think that a lot of people are going to have, besides that one Demo lock, will be like Affliction and Destro or Affliction and Demo of some sort.
Right. And you could even go Destro on like Vezax. You know, these random fights where you have like weirdly percent scaling buffs from the encounter that are giving you like externally, like that's when Demo or Destro has like its weird spikes where it actually like tops meters, but it's very niche. Overall, it's the worst spec of the three. You want to talk about Demo next?
Yeah, go ahead. I love it.
So Demo is amazing. I actually have a Demo guide on my YouTube channel. I would highly recommend checking out. Written by a guy who has been playing Demo Lock for years and has gotten multiple realm firsts on Demo Lock. And it's a phenomenal class. It is the survival hunter of Wrath. The way that it works, how you stack agility on survival hunter and TBC, you stack spell power and spirit on your Demo Lock in Wrath, and however much spell power that they have when they snapshot their demonic pact, a percent of that gets applied as a buff to your entire raid. So the more spell power that your Demo Lock has, the more spell power your whole raid has, basically.
And they get fed gear. They get fed gear to it.
They get fed everything. Because of that, they're always going to have more gear than all the other casters. So they're going to be able to absolutely pump out of their minds. But also, Demo Lock is just a great class. Like, first of all, everyone's obsessed with Metamorphosis as just a visually and like really fun ability to press. But they do really good AoE. I think their overall is going to be phenomenal.
Phenomenal. Yeah, I was saying
absolutely phenomenal. Their overall is potentially like stack worthy. Potentially. I don't know because I'm not a caster guy, but I really think like there's a chance that like you could stack demo locks instead of affliction for things like Naxxramas, where like maybe the encounters are just so short that it doesn't matter.
I agree with you. I think T7 Demo might be a little bit of a meta move because everything's dying so fast, and Demo is so fucking strong. And I would in T7 on those fights in the AoE trash. I don't know obviously because I'm gonna have to flex back and forth. Because I think in Classic, to be honest, when we get to Affliction, as good as it is, I think it's gonna lose some value a little bit because of how short the fights are with Classic. But I think Demo starts to shine a little bit more. But that's a good comparison to the it's and on that even more, it's not just how it's strong, the rotation. I mean, you're using if you look at your details overall at the end of it, you got Soulfire, Conflags, Emos, Incinerates, Shadow Bolts, Corruption. You got everything. Like you're using your whole fucking toolkit. It's crazy.
Yep.
And it's so much fucking fun, dude. It's actually like a bananas amount
and
of fun.
The execute is so fun too. It's a phenomenal class. Like genuinely so fun. I think there's actually going to be competition for being the token demo lock of your guild. Multiple people will want to be it because it's that fun and that good.
And they get funneled gear too. Everybody wants gear. So if you think about survival or the affliction lock in TBC, nobody wants to play affliction because it's trash. But imagine if you actually did good damage and you got funneled every piece of gear. Everybody in the world would want to be affliction. Oh, I'll do it. Don't even worry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they pump. They're disrespectful too. But you know what else is crazy? I feel like they have the worst threat issues in the game, bro.
The worst what?
Threat issues. Demo, the Demo AoE, bro, it's like crazy because you have to be in melee range, pretty close to melee range to get that emo aura, which is then melee oh man, it's crazy, bro. It's actually kind of crazy.
Yeah,
it was funny to see. It was funny to see I'm Alive do it. I'm Alive is a Giga Brain Warlock, and he was learning Demo. Dude was dying left and right to all the fucking threat thing. It was so funny to see it happen, bro. But once you get used to it, you're good.
Yeah, once you got good tanks or good paladins who could bop you, you'll be fine. But for sure, man, they're absolutely insane. I can't overstate it enough. Like Demo Lock is one of the most fun casters to play, and they're desirable. So very desirable.
Tara's in here. They said it's everyone except female survival hunter. Tara. Hi Tara, how you doing, Tara? We love you, Tara. You're a celebrity here because you're a pumper. Okay, carry on.
All right, last one, Affliction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, look, Affliction. This is where I get my stance on Affliction being or Warlock being the best DPS class in the game. It's Affliction. Affliction to me is the single best DPS in the game. That doesn't mean that they're going to top, like literally be number one of every single fight. That's not what I mean by that. They have good things that are going for them, just like a Death Knight would, where they survive mechanics. They are able to not only multi-dot well, but they do great single target and absolutely amazing execute damage. They don't suffer from mobility issues. Warlock is just
Demonic Gateway,
everything
baby.
You want it to be.
Demonic Gateway.
High skill ceiling too. High skill ceiling with Affliction Lock, which is great, which makes it like
the highest
enjoyable, like replayability there too.
In my opinion, it's the highest skill capped Affliction Warlock is in the entire game. I could be wrong because that's like only 3 classes I played, but I blindly guessing, looking into it, Affliction is the highest skill cap to play properly. There's so much shit you have to look out for, not just timers, weak auras, snapshotting, rolling everything. There's so much stuff to look out for. It's crazy and it makes it so much fun. And someone asked earlier if Warlock is going to be the overplayed like it is in TBC, and I don't think it's going to be honest, because of how much of these specs open up and all pump and how difficult Affliction is going to be for the meta spec. I don't think it's going to be overplayed. I think maybe at first they will, but then they realize that, oh shit, I can't. Affliction right now in TBC, you can take me in a Black Temple and you could take, let's say, Sarthe. No, nothing against Sarthe. I'm just using him or Rugsz, just so I don't flame Sarthe. Use Rugsz, who's never played a Warlock, and we could be equally geared, and I'm going to beat him, but I'm not going to beat Rugsz by that much, because all essentially you're doing is special Shadow Bolt and Seed of Corruption. I'm just pressing it a little bit different, and it's what I'm doing in between that, right? This is you take me, and you take one other person who doesn't know what they're doing, and they're on the you're bottom 15, bro. You're out of the top 10 and 15 if you fuck up one thing on Affliction. It's crazy. So, and it's so rewarding and punishing at the same time, which makes it so much fun. But I'm worried about the length of the fights, because even on those private servers, when we were on there, bro, there was fights where I was not getting any execution. It didn't even matter. I couldn't even get a full drain off. I couldn't get anything off, right? So that's what I'm worried about, where we lose a lot of umph, especially because there is no hard mode 2-minute execution range anymore. There's not going to be that in Lich King. I mean, maybe at the end, but there's not going to be a lot of that in Classic like there is on overtuned private servers. So that's where I'm kind of worried about. But they're definitely going to pump.
How do Affliction locks like stack up on like overall damage? How fast are they stacking AoE damage? Like obviously their execute phase is crazy if there's a long execute phase and they pump on like bosses like crazy. But if mobs like trash mobs die quickly, say like or like Black Temple timing, how does Affliction look in that instance?
Well, honestly, not as good. You have dual spec, so I swapped to a different spec for trash because the AoE for Affliction is seeding, but it's less on seeding and more of you still putting up your dots, like still putting up a corruption UAs on shit. And then seeding, obviously don't fuck your corruptions up with your seed, so you seed on the right target. And then if you can get your dots up and good like 0.5%, like 60-65% of a dot up, and then you're seeding, you're clapping, right? And you also have Shadow Flame too if you're in melee. But I don't see that happening. So if it gets to the point where if it's short fights like Naxx's in tier 7, I'm not even able to put dots up. I'm able to put like 1 up, but it's seeding and seeding and seeding, and then like maybe bolting in the single target rotation even to do more damage. At some point, the seeds are not even enough to where you would just sit there and put a dot up and bolt into one target. Versus, that's why I said I would be switching spec. I would be dual specing into Destro or Demo. Probably Demo because it's so good for AoE. Because the AoE is absolutely fucking bananas on both the other specs.
Right. Yeah. So just like a little insider info, the guild that I'm playing in on Warmane is wanting to run 6 Affliction locks for tier 7 Realm First race and 1 Demo.
We are too. We're the same thing. Yep.
You know, like that's a lot. That is like some major class stacking. And there's no way that's going to be like the meta in Classic Wrath. Like Warlocks will come way down just from exactly what Crix was saying and the shorter execute times, because this is a buff server. But it's just that I just want y'all to know, like, that's a testament to how good Affliction is. It's crazy.
It's not just me, fucking Warlock copium. I fucking told you. Every time I say they're good, everyone's like copium. Cop.
They're going to come way down from these clouds where we have them on, like this pedestal that we have them on for sure. But you need to understand, like
we're not even on the pedestal. Insane. Everybody shit talks Warlocks in TBC because all their Warlocks are fucking ass and getting smacked out by mages. They don't got good Warlocks in their raids, bro. As soon as you have a good Warlock in your raid, as soon as you have a good Warlock in your raid, bro, you'll think different of Warlocks. But if you're in a guild where your Warlocks if you're in a Warlock and your Warlock is fucking 6 DPS at all times on AoE packs, bro, he's trash, not Warlocks.
Scripting wise, is there any sort of partial resist situation there can't be for dots? Actually, it's sad to say that I'm not.
I don't think dot takes
so then resist. You don't take any sort of hit, like say like Warlocks coming from TBC private servers. You weren't seeing these like you're critting your Shadow Bolt for 3,000, for 1,000, getting all fucking frustrated. Instead, you're always hitting that like 1.2k or 12k. You know, right now it's just like it's probably so frustrating, and it can be whenever I play my lock and seeing pumpers play their locks, like watching Crix and stuff, and you're just like getting these crits, but it's nothing, right? So now you're not falling like prey to that when you're fighting bosses because you're doing so much damage with your dots that also keeps Warlocks in a higher tier there innately. The only thing that like will fall is like faster kill times, obviously, for execute phase.
Yeah.
Yep. And
very well said. Yeah. Very well said. I'm excited for it. I think I was thinking about this, and I would think like if in terms of speed running, it might not. I mean, especially early, you won't be. I don't think you'd beat Affliction, bro. To be honest, in speed run, you might be Demo for that because Demo's really clapping out early games like that.
It's tough to say. Part of me wants to believe that you're right there, and I think that potentially Demo could be better, but I don't know. That's a pretty hot take.
We have to see we have to see literally how short, how easy, how the content is. Which
that's a pretty hot take because
imagine Karazhan
is really good.
Yeah, but imagine Karazhan as an Affliction lock early in the beginning of TBC. What execute phases were there besides like Curator or some shit? There wasn't really a lot of execute phases, right?
But overall,
you could have got 2 good ones. Yeah, true. But overall, it's still going to be rough because overall everything's dying so fast. Yeah, you can swap. You just got to be out of combat for those wondering. You also have to resummon a pet and you lose all your mana. So you got to respec. You dual spec, you sit down and drink, you get a pet out, you re pet. Which for Affliction also, we didn't say this. Obviously, as you know, right now you're sacrificing a pet and you're spamming Shadow Bolts. That's gone. You have a pet out full time. It's a Fell Hunter, which means you're bringing more utility to your raid because you can get yourself or anybody else out of shit. How many times have you been feared polyed anything in the world in a raid and you're just like, dispel me? But they don't. You know what I mean? Now you can do it to yourself. Now you have a kick. How many times are you like, kick that shit, you dirty mage? And they don't kick it because they're too busy pumping. Now you can kick it. You have pet management you got to worry about as well. And the pets do good damage. Not just Demo obviously is a pet too, but there's no more sacking a pet. It's gone.
That's good. I like pet classes. I'm not gonna lie. I've grown very, very like accustomed to watching pets and like managing pets.
Yeah, so Sarthe, if you like min-maxing characters, you like Affliction.
Yeah.
If you like me,
it's
well, not just
actually
affliction, demo
a
too.
good draw.
Demo's a lot of mid max in it, bro. There's a reason why you see a demo only casting incinerate, not doing damage, then one casting everything in his toolkit. And demonic gateway makes the game that changes, bro. It's a hard change. I could talk about warlocks forever. You got to shut me up.
Okay, so
I'm excited to see it.
Jordy had asked a really good question in chat, asking about like what the raid comp would look like. But I'm like running out of time, so we got to wrap this up. Do you want to do like a quick raid comp thing and then call it, or what do we think? Save it maybe for another episode?
What group comp would look like? Yeah, let's do another. We can do raid comps. Well, TLDR, there's only like 2 warlocks in it, 2 AF and 1 demo usually. We were talking about that, but yeah, we can go over comp stuff later if you have time. We're gonna do another episode in next. We're doing 3 back to back, so this one and then 2 more. We're gonna do one. The next one's not about raiding. It'll be about everything else in the game, professions and whatever else. We can have like Rugsz and Scotty J's gonna come on there. Rugsz, you're more than welcome to if you want to. And then the following week after that is a PvP, full PvP episode where we're doing this, but with some Giga Brain PvPers from Lich King. So like earplugs and a couple more. But that's it, guys. That was a long 3-hour episode. That was a good one.
That was nuts, dude.
That was a lot of fun, bro. You guys vibe with that?
I think this is the least talking I've done in any episode because it's also me learning in this episode, but also I love it because I can pose the questions from a classic speedrunner's point of view, and Rugsz is able, and you, Crix, are able to like put it into that perspective now that you've played both versions at the highest level.
Yeah, it helps me a lot too with my just conversationally, like I'll just start going off on a tangent if I don't have you like asking like these good questions, and chat too. So shout out to everyone in chat who was asking good questions. Like this is a great collaborative episode, really.
Yeah, we'll see you again next week. Yo, I'm gonna plug the shit out of your thing right now, right? Here's Rugsz' YouTube. He actually streams. He's more focused on TBC. Well, we have the server coming up, but he streams a lot of TBC. So that's creepy. There's exactly 666 people in here. 666. We're going to die here soon, boys. So I'm gonna link your shit. Check him out, please. This dude is, once again, if you showed up late, this is not just a Lich King guy. He's ranked 5 World Feral Drew DPS. He understands Classic well. He understands TBC well. He understands TBC well. He understands Lich King well. There's his Twitch. You already know where to find Sarthe and I. Any closings, boys? Rugsz?
Nah, dude, I'm just so glad to be here, guys. Like, truly, it's a treat, man. It's like I said at the top of this episode, like, this is kind of what I wanted to do, and I'm just really happy to get this opportunity, man. Appreciate y'all.
Of course, man. Just one of my favorite things to do was when I started creating content was saying I took after Cargos. Cargos put me on. I just want to be able to help anybody out, bro. And you help the community out so much more than I can with Lich King, right? So I'm just more than happy to have you on there and anybody else, bro.
I'm so stoked to see Rugsz put out this DK content, as I'm like, damn, is DK about to be the play? So this is going to be so fun to see, like, everyone touching on all of the different classes, especially as we min-max it super hard, because we know we're going to hit this from every fucking angle, the Discords and everyone min-maxing in like theory crafting, and then just honestly like to be able to play classes that are giga in certain like patches and then move on to them for the next patches.
Hey Rugsz, anything to say on the way out, my friend?
Yeah.
I don't know. Am I missing something?
No, I just wanted you to give a big swing.
Am I supposed to plug a sponsor right now? No, check me out on YouTube, man. I'm mostly like a YouTuber. I'm not much of a streamer. My streams are mostly like random raid logging VODs, and I'm not the best at talking to my Twitch chat. I'm a terrible streamer, but I like to make YouTube videos, and they're not great, but they're something, and it's a starting place, and I love it. So check me out on YouTube mostly, but follow me on Twitch if you're more into, watching Twitch. So whatever works. Appreciate y'all.
Recognize his name, boys. He's going big places. Sarthe, baby. I love you, brother. Light Skin Gang.
Crix. Always.
You're sweating right now, bro. What are you on?
Dude, my house is so hot right now. I went earlier and went and grabbed turned on the AC, and I guarantee one of my roommates is downstairs with his shirt off and turned the AC off. I know it for a fact. It happens all the time, and I'm just like, bro, it's 78 in here. What are you doing? Right. How are you comfortable like this, man? It is just this is where I live, guys. Oh my gosh. I need to start wearing do-rags like Crix so I can just cover this fucking
there you go
reflection.
I'm just covering up my baldness, no big deal.